Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Inflation could fall to its lowest level in over a year as food prices ease.
Here's hoping. Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Wednesday, the 19th of July. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
And leading the news on this Wednesday morning, the latest inflation data will be published in just under an hour. Predictions of a significant drop following a fall in grocery prices. This comes amid warnings. The Bank of England, though, is still likely to raise interest rates next month.
Nigel Farage says he has evidence that Coutts Bank closed his account on personal and political grounds. The GB News presenter claims internal documents reveal he was axed because his views didn't align with the bank's values.
Jaguar Land Rover will build an electric car battery factory in the UK, creating up to 9,000 jobs. It'll be in Somerset and be announced today. It's described as the most important investment in the automotive industry since Nissan in the 80s.
2 cruise ships set to house 1,000 asylum seekers have been returned to their owners after being unable to find anywhere to dock. Approaches by the giant vessels were rejected in Liverpool, London and Edinburgh.
In sport, England head into a must-win Ashes fourth test. Can they keep the series alive? Paul Coyte will be here with that and the other sports news. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Eamonn. I've got to tell you, I'm so excited about this. So England are 2-1 down, 2 tests to go. Old Trafford today, and England haven't beaten Australia there in 42 years.
Oh, wow. Red alerts are in place, warning of a high risk to health in Italy, in Greece and in Spain because of all these high temperatures and the wildfires. And we're going to bring you the latest and the forecast for the UK.
No sign of the European heatwave affecting the UK anytime soon, but will we at least see any brighter weather in between the showers? I'll have the full forecast in the next hour or so.
You know, not exactly associated with weather, but sort of. Today, for the first time, I've noticed it was much darker.
I had the same experience.
The street lights were
coming. Yeah, winter's coming again.
like
It felt
that was-
wintry.
It was the end of summer. All the street lamps were on. And there was no sign. Normally dawn is happening, the sun is going up in the sky or whatever, but it was dark, very, very dark. It was like winter.
I've spotted the first blackberries.
Have
and
you?
you know, blackberries are a sign of the end of the summer. You normally get them in September. They started appearing. I know this because my son's stealing them on the walk to school or walk home. So, you know, have we had our summer already?
And it's okay to eat those, is it?
Not until they're properly black, but they're appearing. And, you know, I just think we had that really big heat wave, didn't we, in June, where we were all boiling, everyone wanted aircon, and now it's rubbish, and it feels like sort of autumn.
How dark is it where you are this morning? Let us know, or are we just imagining it? Our top story is the latest inflation figures will be released in less than an hour's time. Predictions, it could drop to its lowest level in over a year due to falling food prices.
Well, experts are predicting the figure could come down by 0.5% from its current rate of 8.7%, but the Bank of England is still likely to go ahead with a 14th consecutive interest rate rise next month.
So what good does that do? Let's get analysis from the businessman, financial commentator, David Buick, my friend. Long time no see.
Good morning, Eamonn. Good morning, Isabel. Lovely
Morning.
to chat to you.
Yeah, you're looking very fresh. Just want to say,
I'm
David.
not sure about that.
When we look at whatever the Bank of England are trying to achieve with these high interest rates, why are they still going ahead with them if inflation's coming down?
It's not coming down fast enough, I'm afraid, Eamonn. It's really, really stubborn. And Isabel's, when she said it's coming down from 8.7% to 8.2%, I would say that's disappointing when you see the United States, who of course had no oil problems or energy problems, came down from 4 to 3%. And next week, we're expecting the Eurozone to come down from 6.1% to 5.5%. And here we are, supposedly hoping at 8.2%. I was hoping actually for 7.9%. But this inflation on food just won't go away. It's down from 16.4% to 14.9%. But that's still outrageous, and until that actually gives. And then, of course, we've got all these other inflationary pressures that we've had. You alluded to the fact that this, if we have one on the 3rd of August, it will be the 14th rate increase, up from 5%. We've had 13 from 0.1% just about 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And the thing that people fail to understand on this, and this is where I think the bank has been criticized for being slow out of the blocks in getting rates up. The other thing, of course, is quantitative easing. And we were over generous during the time of the pandemic. £400 billion was spent on, helping people stay in work and that sort of thing. And so we've got a total of quantitative easing of £895 billion. Well, after the banking crisis, Mark Carney, who's then the governor of the Bank of England, should have cut it dramatically and introduced us back to some sort of commercial interest rate factor. But people underestimate, Eamonn, how important it is to get that quantitative easing down, because it's unbelievably inflationary. And our bill for servicing our debt, which is now 2.5 trillion plus, and when interest rates on an official basis have gone up from, say, 1.5% to just over 5% for 2 years, I mean, that is an astronomical increase in terms of having to service debt.
And when we talk about a possible further 14th interest rate rise for the Bank of England, of course, then that gets a knock-on in terms of mortgages, and then that has a knock-on in terms of the housing market and actually even into the rental sector as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we are 6% is what I call red light territory. It really is dangerous. Now, obviously, keys won't be returned to mortgages, but people just cannot service debt. Some of them as much as £500 a month on top of the cost of living problems that they've currently got. And I'm hoping and praying, and I think I'm sort of in Walter Mitty land, that Andrew Bailey and his MPC committee will pause and reflect on life on the 3rd of August, as the Federal Reserve did. Now, the figures are slightly different on this, but, the point is with interest rates, it is a blunt instrument. It's effective, but it takes 6 months to filter through, in which time, economically, you and I as individuals are hanging in rags, and it's very, very unhelpful. And I was just hoping that they could look at it for the time being, just for a little bit, and try and do something to stimulate business, industry, and commerce. This is one thing this government which has surprised me for a Conservative government, the stimulation to get people to actually want to work and actually try and create their own businesses, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises, depresses me greatly.
Well, can I ask you about that? I mean, it's on the front of the pages of the papers this morning, this Jaguar Land Rover subsidy the government's given, rumours of around £500 million. I mean, that's going to stimulate employment, hopefully lots of growth and a big hit to the automotive industry in a good way. That's the sort of thing you're talking about, isn't it?
Yes, I don't want to be, the prophet of doom, but you're absolutely right in your assessment there. 9,000 jobs, and I don't want to be cynical, but whoopee, because the European Union have got 34 of these factories in the pipeline. We've got this one and the possibility of one in Blyth in Northumberland, which is on a stop-start-go situation. We need to get our act together because this is not enough. It's a fantastic start. Thank you very much, Tata, and thank you very much, Jaguar Land Rover. But excuse me, we need another at least 3 or 4 plants. PDQ.
Okay. And just talking about food inflation, David, this grain deal between Russia and Ukraine being interrupted again, is that likely to have any effect on food inflation?
Well, we thought in terms of prices, actually the response has been pretty muted. I'm pleased to say, because contingency plans have been saying, okay, if the Russians are going to be difficult, and if it's going to be difficult to get stuff out of the Black Sea, we're going to go down the Danube and we're going to send loads and loads of trucks all right across Europe. It is going to be a little bit expensive, but at least the supply chain, which of course is desperate and has caused us so much aggravation, and of course areas like North Africa, I'm hopeful that Putin's ridiculous response yet again will be fairly muted for the reasons I've given.
Well, thank goodness you're not muted, David. An absolute pleasure to speak to you again this morning. Hope we'll see much more of you in the coming days and weeks here on GB News. Thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure both. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, as we were just discussing there, food price inflation is falling. Supermarket bosses are predicting the beginning of the end for those sky-high food prices.
But farmers still struggling with rising costs and the threat of food insecurity. Our reporter, Dougie Beattie, he's got the story.
Food is essential to us all, and the cost of it is still rising. The strong pound allows supermarkets to import more product, but at a cost to our own agri-sector. The problem that British farmers have is when people are out shopping, do they really care about the origin of the product, or are they more worried about the cost?
Just buy it by price. Depends what it is.
Some of it meat, we buy local.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a very good local butcher.
I just get the wife to get it myself, to be honest with you. Price first. Yeah. It depends what I'm buying.
Just go by the price of it. Whatever's the cheapest.
Both.
I go by price. Glenn Cuddy is a farmer that has 3 different types of livestock, and he wants the government to give commitment to its own food producers.
We keep suckler cows, we put the calves all to beef, we keep breeding ewes, we finish all the lambs, and then we keep breeding herd of sows, and we finish most of the pigs from birth to bacon. We need a commitment from the government to say that they will use British food, not going away making deals with other countries to bring in food that will be not produced to the same standards as we're producing food.
Input costs and household budgets are still rising, and food producers are looking to the future and are questioning just how that will look.
The market has improved slightly, but there's downward pressure on the market too, coming again, because the government is saying every day that food is too expensive, and they're putting the pressure on the supermarkets, which is in turn coming back to us. I can't see farming growing the same way it is, and I do fear for food security down the line.
Dougie Beattie, GB News, Tyrone.
And there it is. It's about keeping the connection, that we understand what comes from the farm and what ends up in the supermarket. I think often that connection's broken. People think food's just in a packet. They don't realise how it's produced and where it's from. So thank you to our farmers. Thank you to Dougie for that.
Now, the GB News presenter, Nigel Farage, says he's obtained documents that show Coutts Bank decided to close his account because of his views, contrary to what they claimed. On his programme last night, he broke down the story.
Quote, the committee did not think continuing to bank Nigel Farage was compatible with Coutts, given his publicly stated views that were at odds with our position as an inclusive organisation. Their recommendation was that once I'd paid off my mortgage, which I did in early March of this year, that my Coutts account should be shut down. In April, I received a telephone call to say my account was being closed. I received a letter confirming the account would be closed. No reasons given whatsoever. It's only when that I complained to the chairman that I got a phone call from Coutts saying it was being done for commercial reasons. Well, on the 17th of November last year, that clearly wasn't the case. Now, bear in mind, this is important. This is not just about Coutts, and it's not just about me, because NatWest is part of the same banking group, and they have 19 million customers. So the culture that exists within these organisations, how they treat their customers, matters to a huge number of people in this country.
Well, in reply, Coutts Bank said, our ability to respond is restricted by our obligations and client confidentiality. Decisions to close accounts aren't taken lightly and take into account a number of factors, including commercial viability, reputational considerations, and legal and regulatory requirements.
Well, we can speak now to former political director, Boris Johnson's former political director, in fact, Alex Carey, regular on the show. He's absolutely right in all of this, Nigel Farage, that this is alarming, regardless of the bank, the money involved, or the players, that anybody's political view should have any relation to their ability to have a bank account is very strange in 2023 in this country.
It's extremely worrying. I think a lot of people watching this will be thinking, do you now have to align with the values of your bank? Well, maybe all the banks now should publish their criteria to say on which basis they will accept customers and on which basis they won't accept customers. Now, you might think that Coutts it's a posh bank, it's not really anything to do with you or I, but actually Coutts is owned by NatWest. And guess who's a major a shareholder in NatWest? The government, the taxpayer. We still own 39% of the NatWest group. So actually, this is way bigger than just a little small issue with a minor bank. And it doesn't matter what you think of Nigel Farage. You could hate him, you could love him. It doesn't matter. Yeah. The point is that you've got a bank saying that we don't like the things that he's said. If you look at the report that they did on him, they admit he hasn't done anything illegal. He hasn't broken any regulations. He wasn't rude to the staff. He hasn't done anything which might be a legitimate reason.
So yeah, it was a reputational...
They then lied.
Yeah.
They lied. That we're talking about reputational damage. I mean, this exclusive bank said it was to do with his financial balances, and it was not.
No, it wasn't. It was nothing to do with that whatsoever. And we've got this strange term of reputational risk. Well, it's weird because their statement just now says, well, they can't talk about it because of client confidentiality. So if their clients are confidential, what is the reputational risk? Who knew before this story broke that Nigel Farage was a customer of Coutts?
Well, quite. So what I actually would argue is the reputational damage of Coutts in all of this is deciding who can and can't be a customer based on their politics.
But what I would worry about, Alex, is the fact that us three are sitting here discussing this, which is what we're doing, but could we then have reputational damage?
Well, I need to check my bank. You know, I better be careful what I say now, because otherwise my bank will look at this and think, oh, we don't like the sound of him, let's get rid of him.
When this story first broke a couple of weeks ago, the government came out and said, right, we want to get to the bottom of this. This absolutely shouldn't be allowed to happen. So what do we need to see now, given that this has been exposed by Farage?
Well, the government have already passed regulations saying that banks should not be able to do this, that the Financial Conduct Authority should take a closer look at banks to make sure that they're not overreaching themselves. Obviously, there are very sensible regulations in place that say if there are customers that are involved in criminality or breaking regulations and so on and so forth, there are measures to deal with that. But the line has got to be drawn there and no further. It's got nothing to do with your bank as to what your personal political views are. The only thing the bank should be concerned with is, are you a paying customer? Are you operating within all of the laws and regulations that exist? And that is it.
OK. Alex, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories. The NHS is bracing for one of the toughest strikes in its history this week. Its medical director warning routine care will be virtually at a standstill. Consultant doctors will strike for 48 hours from 7 a.m. on Thursday through to 7 a.m. on Saturday.
Councils are warning that the government's promised bus revolution is completely failing to fix the steep decline in rural services as journeys hit a historic low. The County Council's network, which represents local authorities, says the failure undermines the levelling up agenda.
The King and Queen watched performances of Shakespeare last night as they marked the Bard's contribution to the life and culture of the nation. Charles and Camilla were treated to extracts from some of the most famous scenes in the English language to celebrate the 400th anniversary of the first printed edition of Shakespeare's collection of plays.
Now, I was looking through the papers this morning and one story leapt out of the Star, which was about, obviously, we're all getting excited about the World Cup and the Lionesses down in Australia and the build-up, and there was a survey of sporty men, and 34% of blokes said they think that they could be better at football than the Lionesses. 34%. Unbelievable. 15% thought they were more skillful at heading or at tackling.
And these are just amateur guys.
Amateurs.
These are just
they just think that
guys
because
in the
they're
pub.
women, they can play better than them. These World Cup winners, Euro winners, they won the Euros, didn't they? It just enraged me. So are you watching this or listening to this at home thinking, yeah, I could take on a lioness. I'm one of these 1 in 3 guys who doesn't really rate their experience or talents. What do you think? Could you be better than one of the lionesses?
Well, I think it may well be reflected in the TV viewing figures as well, because there wasn't a great uptake or interest in that, in the bidding war for the rights. So it may pass on to people just sort of...
Dismissive.
Yeah, they're not gripped enough by it. But I think that changes once the matches start happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. OK. So here is your forecast. Let's go to Aidan McGivern because we think it's very dark out there.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, good morning to you. It's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A brighter day for many of us today, sunny spells, but there'll be further showers, especially towards the east. It's towards the east where yesterday's rain is moving away, but still some showers first thing, and then into the afternoon more widely, a mixture of sunny spells and showers emerging. The most frequent and heaviest showers will be towards the east. The driest and brightest weather will be for Wales and the southwest, where some places won't see any showers at all, and it will stay largely dry with sunny spells. 22 Celsius there for Exeter, 16 for Sunderland, so you can see this east-west, north-south contrast in the temperatures. And the showers in the east will continue for some time into the evening, but eventually clear spells will emerge across the UK. Showers really just confined to the north of Scotland, northern parts of Northern Ireland overnight, and with clear skies elsewhere and with lighter winds. We've got cool air in place at the moment, so low double figures, mid to high single figures in some sheltered spots as we wake up on Thursday. Plenty of sunshine though first thing Thursday, but quite quickly that cloud will build once again and we'll see showers developing initially across Wales, central parts of England, but more widely into the afternoon. However, it's towards the south and perhaps across central parts of Scotland where we'll see fewer showers, and with temperatures in the brighter spots reaching low 20s, it won't feel too unpleasant. Wetter weather this weekend.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hope the weather will be favourable to England as the 4th Ashes Test begins today. Paul Coit will bring us all the details on that and the rest of the sport after this.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Still to come on the programme this morning.
As the American actors' strike shuts down Hollywood, it could also be shutting down Harry and Meghan's £80 million Netflix deal. Kinsey Schofield will bring us the latest live from LA at 10 to 7.
Never mind that, it's shut down a film in Belfast, so it has How to Train Your Dragon.
So it has.
So that's a casualty for this screenwriter's situation.
Like that.
Though I do think this is something that people don't understand and they don't really have a lot of sympathy for. It's not like doctors or nurses going on strike, is it?
It's jobs though, isn't it? And it's talents, creative industries. We'll discuss it all with Kinsey at 10 to 7, 20 past 7.
After a major British business tells applicants they don't need to bring a CV to a job interview, we'll ask if CVs are outdated. And if you didn't use a CV, what's the alternative to find perfect candidates for a job?
And as usual, we want to hear what you think on all of the topics we're covering. Send in your thoughts to gbviews@gbnews.com, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
Let's see what we've got on the back pages this morning. Party like it's 2005, says the Mirror. The cricket captain Ben Stokes is upbeat ahead of the 4th Ashes test. I need more stars now. The Sun says the new Chelsea boss has asked the owners for even more players. England women's pay dispute is to rumble on beyond the World Cup, says the Eye. We are one of a number of nations who have failed to resolve the dispute ahead of the tournament. What dispute is this? What is this? I don't know about this. What are this? It's about
How much money they get paid?
Women footballers.
Women footballers and what they get paid for playing in the
What
World
paper
Cup.
was that in? What was that? The Guardian? What was that?
It's in most of the papers, actually. It's in the Times today as
Really?
well. And
Is it? How much are they paid?
they get paid per game £2,000.
And the problem is what?
So do the men. But going into the World Cup, they're not going to get that. Now, every player in the Women's World Cup will get 23... I'll do this in pounds because obviously they do it in dollars and what have you. £23,000 go to every player that takes part in the Women's World Cup, which gets underway tomorrow. Now, the winners, if you manage to win it and you're in the winning team, you'll make yourself £206,000, which is not bad going. And the FA have given every one of our players £10,000 each to cover expenses, etc., for when they go to Australia and New Zealand. Now, the women are saying that they're losing that £2,000 per game, that therefore the FA are not treating them right and they should be being paid that as well. Whereas you've got the Americans and the Australians are also already getting their money. Now, it's like, OK, but leave it. Let's concentrate on the football.
Yeah, just leave
afterwards.
it.
You know what I mean? I don't know whether this is...
All of it's too much money.
It's a lot of money to be earning. And also, this comes from FIFA. I mean, I'm amazed that FIFA are actually doing this, but for every player, £23,000. But that's why the FA have said, well, you know, FIFA are giving you money. So, well, we want more money. We want money from you as well, because it's only fair. Is it? Well...
See, Isabel, this is where the backlash could start. when greed sort of takes over like that. I mean, what happened to the honour of playing for your country or your shirt and
it's the most important
all that
thing.
sort of thing?
It's the most important thing. They don't play for... It's different in women's football. There are some superstars in women's football that are earning huge money, but the regular women's professional player that even plays in the
they
don't earn that huge.
They don't bring in the same commercial endorsements at the same value.
Let's be honest. I mean, 1 in 3 average Joes could play better than a Lioness, according to you guys. According to you men.
Don't you tar me with that.
According to you guys, you think that any schoolboy could beat the Lionesses.
You men just think you're better than the women playing football. Women professionals are, of course, but I know hasn't there been a survey then that said that 2 in 3 men on the street would say that they could beat the Lionesses?
1 in 3, yeah.
1 in 3.
34%.
I've kicked around with professional women's footballers, and my goodness, I'm afraid they would.
Yeah.
But I'm at this stage in life, and obviously have been for many, many years.
Yes.
Whereby I know what every kick feels like. Yeah. I know every tackle feels like. But obviously I couldn't do any of them. But I sit and I watch a match, and it's like, and I feel it all. I know in my head exactly what's going on, but no way could I do it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You still feel it, don't you?
Still feel it.
I mean, I don't know if you've noticed I'm hobbling around today.
Yeah.
I got a nasty groin strain yesterday playing keep. Don't raise your eyebrows at me. I say, it was keepy up. He's in the garden with my son.
Oh, you're
all I'm doing, I'm having a little... chance to be a fine thing. I'm kicking the ball around, and all I'm doing, and I'm like hobbling around. And so still in my brain says that I can still do it. I know very well.
Would eat you for breakfast.
I think they probably
They're
would.
so rawsome.
I think they probably
I had a groin strain, which...
This is like the old man's bulletin now. No offence.
Let's all choose your favourite groin strain. What was yours?
It obviously was affecting me on the inside of my thigh. It was very, I'm not pointing to you exactly where it is.
Good.
But the lady in the physio, she fixed it by rubbing my calf muscle. Nowhere near where the groin is.
Was that as close as she wanted to go? Is that what it was?
Basically, she rubbed the ball of my leg.
Oh, thank goodness it was there. Okay.
Yes, and it eased on the inside.
Well, maybe you should try that, Paul.
It happened to me years ago, and I went to it was an old physio at Peterborough United. I was living up there, and I went to the football club, and this guy, and it was one of these old-style physios, and he says, right, I'll sort you out. Lay on there, and then he got his hand doing all this.
Oh, no.
I swore I would never admit to having a groin strain again. Yeah. It was more painful than the groin strain. In fact, I still feel it, and it was about 25 years ago.
Absolutely mad. So here we are, the 4th Ashes test. And Ben Stokes, who's the captain, he's basically saying, look, if we're rained off, this is not a bad thing.
It's not, not rained off, as in rain could help, because it's a 5-day game, the weather will suit it, and also the way that England play. They don't want to be playing the fight. So what it's basically saying, it doesn't need to go 5 days, is that it may hurry us along because the way we play is quick, hitting the ball quickly, trying to take wickets early, so therefore it just shortens the game, and it may suit the way they play better than Australia, who are more likely to play the long game. So that's what he's saying. I mean, we've had 3 incredibly close tests. So now, 2-1 down, 2 to go. It's at Old Trafford, which is Jimmy Anderson's back on his home pitch. But we haven't won there since 1981, since the old days of Ian Botham. So last year, when Headingley happened and there was the great Ben Stokes heroics, went then to Old Trafford, and then it didn't go well. So they have to do well today to stay in.
Let's talk about the other Old Trafford, and a lot going on there.
Yes.
Marcus Rashford signed a new deal. Have United got this Inter Milan goalkeeper, Onana, or not?
It's just got to be signed now.
Right.
It's
not officially confirmed.
But we're pretty much there, and they want to take him on tour. So Rashford, 17 million a year, 325 grand a week is what it's going to be on.
The transfer I thought was really lovely was Johnny Evans.
I know, how about that?
Centre back for United. He's re-signed just for the tour.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether it's for the tour, but he's come back in. And Johnny Evans, who's left Leicester, has come back into Manchester United all these years after leaving. And so he's going to be there for... It's short term.
It's just for the tour.
Just for the... What a lovely thought.
Yeah.
You could have come if you were fit and then you'd have that groin strain. You could have come in for the rest of the
No, but Johnny's done well, so he's left Leicester. He's looking for another club long term, and Ten Hag has thought, look, help us out on this. And I thought,
but I like that. I think it's nice to look after ex-players. and bring them in again. I wonder how much they're going to pay him, though. I think it's going to be 325 grand a week, isn't it?
World Cup songs, Melanie C.
Oh, yes. Yeah, as far as the women are concerned, because I said the World Cup begins tomorrow. Favourite songs, Back Home from 70. Back Home. Da, 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 da. You remember that one? World in Motion, the one with New Order, which was great from 98. And then there's Three Lions, of course.
Yeah, but she'll be recording...
She's doing her own one. Yeah.
Something completely different.
Of course.
She is girl power,
just trying to,
all.
just get us in the mood for the old ones. There's Mel C, Self-Esteem, Wolf Alice singer, Ellie Rousel. It's called Call Me a Lioness. Apparently, I haven't heard it yet, but it's apparently rousing and exciting and will bring the country together, of course, as they always say with these World Cup songs.
It's exciting.
It's very exciting.
Feel the excitement already.
Can you really? Are you really?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Saturday morning, 10:30, first England
Bring
game.
it on.
It's 80, and it gets underway tomorrow.
Looking forward to it.
Good.
Can I just say...
in the lion community, the lioness does all the work. The lioness does the hunting, for instance, as well.
Just not in the lioness community.
And the lion...
The lion sleeps tonight.
The lion sleeps tonight.
Yes.
The lion sits there licking his lips for the woman to come back.
And you approve of that?
No, I'm just telling you.
Just
People would
checking.
think it's the lion that goes out and does all the hunting. No, it's the lionesses.
No surprise to me.
And then they bring the food back in honour to the king of the jungle, the lion, and he licks his lips and has something to eat, and he shows his appreciation then to the lioness, and then he goes to sleep.
And then he goes and kills the cubs when he wants to mate with a new lioness and they're not his. He's so lovely,
right?
that king.
Is that right?
You know, we often wonder who's watching us bright and early in the morning.
Who?
Well, we were discussing, is it darker in the morning? You wouldn't believe how many people have responded.
And it is dark. Are we right?
Everyone's saying it. So, Phil...
I think it's the
has
end
got
of the
in touch.
world.
Well, I have to say, Phil has said, morning, both of you, I'm an early bird. I noticed my street lights were not being switched off until 4:39. And to boot, the birds this week have not whistled.
Yeah.
But so many of them, getting dark. Andy Harvey, I discussed this. We live in Germany. Exactly the same conversation I had in my house yesterday. Good morning. I get up at 4 a.m. every morning to take my dog for a walk at 4:30. It was still dark when I got up. When I left, and I live in Derbyshire, the street lights were still on. And on and on. So many messages. Everybody saying it was really dark, Crack Sparrow this morning.
Yeah, it's the street light business that I noticed today.
And it's also the fact so many of our viewers are up in the middle of the night like we are.
But see, this is the things that we recognise that is the real thing, things that affect your lives. I thought for a moment that it might have been all the smoke that's over Greece and Spain and whatever that had come north.
Well, that's not impossible.
And maybe covered the skies, but no, it wasn't that. So it's interesting. But do you think it is the end of the world?
No.
Okay. Well, if we're still here, stay with us, because Rishi Sunak is looking to freshen up his cabinet. What his drinks cabinet?
No, his top team.
I'm going to freshen up this cabinet.
Friday's the big reshuffle. Stop it, you.
Yeah.
The big reshuffle on Friday, rumour has it. We'll be talking about that and the rest of the day's news in the papers next.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate. Both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We are hotly debating the Lionesses and football in the studio, so much so that we almost missed the return to the advert breaks there. But we've got David Mellon and Scarlett Maguire in the studio with us to review the papers. But first of all, we're going to take a look at what's on the front pages for you this morning.
Here's the Telegraph, first of all. This Nigel Farage story, a rather dashing picture of Nigel adjusting his tie there. And the Coot statement is seen as xenophobic and racist. He's considered by many to be a disingenuous grifter. Being associated with Nigel Farage presents a material and ongoing reputational risk to the bank. But that's not what they said in the first place. They said it was simply about whatever money he had.
In the Eye, it's covering the red alerts being issued by the European Union for dangerously high temperatures.
Express, Rishi Sunak warning illegal immigrants that they will face the toughest ever laws after his victory in Parliament.
And finally, in the Star, dwarf actors are disappointed that the Notting Hill actor Hugh Grant has been cast as an Oompa Loompa in the new Willy Wonka film, accusing him of stealing their jobs. I was giggling there, not to undermine their argument, but more just the casting of Hugh Grant as an Oompa Loompa, which rather tickled me.
What is an Oompa Loompa?
An Oompa Loompa is one of the little people that run around in Willy Wonka's factory.
Things you know.
Have you never read any...
No,
Charlie
but
and
you
the
remind
Chocolate
me of
Factory?
what a great American comedian once said about a president. He said, "It ain't what he says he knows that bothers me, it's what he says he knows that ain't so."
Right,
Isabel is right.
What do Coots know about Nigel Farage then? David, we'll start with you with this one. The bank are now saying, they're not saying, this email that Nigel uncovered says that he doesn't align with our values. However, that's not what they said in the first place. They lied over his ban.
Yeah, I think they behaved disgracefully. I mean, look, when I was a barrister, there was a rule about being a barrister. If someone came to you and wanted representation, you were not allowed to say, "Oh, I don't like the look of you," and not take, you were there as a taxi and you had to accept the passenger who wanted to hire you. Why should banks, let's forget about banks taking the moral high ground. I know plenty of mass murderers who've got more morality about them than most of the banks when you look at the publicity they've been through. To actually be able to throw someone out because they don't like his politics is dangerous, and that should be dealt with. It should be a matter for the regulators to stop banks arbitrarily. What are they going to say? If you vote Conservative, we won't take you on. If you vote Labour, it's grotesque.
But and worse than that, actually, is they said he doesn't have enough money. They completely humiliated him.
Yeah.
I have no idea how rich or not Nigel Farage is, but to say that and then for it not to be true, right?
Yeah,
it was just appalling. And actually, I think anybody with any moral high ground should be taking their money out of Coots.
Yeah, I tell you, I cancelled Coots years ago. Seriously.
Good.
I was a Coots client, and then, it must be 25 years ago, my son and a couple of others went to South America on their gap year, and they were robbed at gunpoint. And all these other people he was with who, were part of the humdrum banking system, they all got their replacement bank cards, and Coots didn't get Anthony's across. So I went in to see the chief executive of Coots and resigned.
Well done, you. What a lovely middle-class story that is. I enjoyed it very
middle class. This is me. I am bourgeois. Cut me open, you'll see bourgeois written all
Isabel,
over me.
you can't call him middle class. Do you know how much money you have to have?
3 million's the threshold, isn't it? So
and yet, when I have an argument with him about trade unions, he quickly tells us what his grandfather did.
Yeah, I do. But, we're an upwardly mobile family, we Melody.
But in all seriousness, the irony, and you talk about people should be withdrawing their money from Coots. The reputational damage to Coots from having lied, I think, actually is more significant than any possible reputational damage when nobody even knew that Nigel Farage banked with Coutts. Everybody knows now, and they see them as having lied. I think it's hugely damaging for the brand.
And that is why.
Absolutely.
That is why one of the stories is about this woman who's the chief executive and earned $5.25 million last year, although the bank is 40% owned by the government, by the British people.
By us, yeah.
Yeah, and she's called Dame Alison Rose, and apparently she's very woke. Well, I don't think being woke and being a banker are consistent. If you want to be woke, you don't become a banker.
Okay.
Interesting. Let's talk about the weather situation. The Mirror, Scarlet front page, terrible picture. A child is carried from a blazing home as inferno temperatures sweep across Europe. This is the terrifying reality of the climate crisis, and the headline is burning up.
I'm afraid it is that if you look at Greece, Spain, Italy, they are all having record temperatures. And one can say, look, it's summer, but actually, when you're breaking records year after year, we have to say that something's going on. And obviously here in cold, rainy London, Britain, that it's one sort of thinks, oh, I wouldn't mind a bit of sun. But I mean, it's really, really scary that what's going. And
I notice Alison Pearson in the Telegraph has a take on this, and she's saying first it was COVID, now we're all being scared into submission over the weather.
Well, I don't think we're being scared into submission. What we're saying is that actually the scientists have been warning us for some time that there's a climate crisis. And look, there is a climate crisis. I mean, you know, it's not about being scared. It's about what are we going to do? Can we? How do we mitigate it?
And the thing about science is it's based on empirical evidence, you know, and you can't dispute it. You've got NASA, you've got the European Space Agency, you've got the United Nations all coming out saying we're going to experience more severe weather. This is happening. And just in the last few days, 7,000 acres of land have been reduced to ash in the outskirts of Athens.
And I looked at a weather map last night, and where the highest temperatures are, we're all in red, and it was North America, Middle America, right across into Central Europe, right through India and into China. So there was this middle belt of our planet that was like, wow, stay away from that.
Yeah. And they've had these wildfires in Canada, which we hear very little about. In fact, we heard about them because the smoke reached New York, because Canada doesn't really exist. But they've been burning for weeks now, and they can't put them out. I mean, there is a real problem.
What about this story, David? The Mail are covering a story. Boy walks free after battering a 69-year-old man.
Yes, this was a 15-year-old yob who was making a nuisance of himself in a group of houses, and he ended up hitting a 69-year-old man, causing a brain bleed and hitting him repeatedly. 3 weeks later, the man died. And let's face it, being 69, it's older, but it's not old. You wouldn't expect someone of 69 without having been substantially attacked to die in these circumstances. And he didn't get any punishment at all worth talking about. I mean, it's all in the Mail online, not, alas, yet in the actual paper. But what this suggests to me is that, you know, the law is supposed to protect the ordinary citizen, but it doesn't, the criminal law. And one of the things that's a serious problem is maybe, I don't know, when we were all young, I mean, when you were young, Eamonn, back in the last century, you know, I mean, 15, you know, was sort of, they were innocent people. 15-year-olds now, the idea that they cannot take responsibility and cannot be named what they do is completely wrong.
Totally agree, yeah. Yeah, this idea that age is supposed to protect, or we didn't know what he was doing. Yeah.
I don't think when we were young, David, that we thought 15-year-olds didn't know what they were doing. I don't think they were so innocent, thinking of my schoolmates. But
not of you.
Obviously, I was a paragon of virtue. I had a lot of fun when I was young. But actually, there were yobs then, there are yobs now. And they have to be dealt with properly. And of course, you know, if you cause somebody to die, then something's got to happen.
Of course. Well, you know, read the Mail online, and they will tell you that this boy got next to nothing.
Maybe there will be an appeal, much like there was an outcry, wasn't there, in relation to the abortion sentencing, and that was overturned yesterday. So it does happen occasionally.
Yes,
there's public outrage at things.
There's something called unduly lenient sentences and where the government appeals. And obviously the Daily Mail is trying to get the government to appeal. And it does happen.
Yeah, so when you come back, you're going to be talking about Ryan Giggs wanting his career back and...
we've got time for one more, we're being told, so that's good. We can squeeze in a Sunak reshuffle, David.
Yes.
Obviously, not everyone gets as excited as me about a cabinet reshuffle, but I always think they're great sport. And rumour has it it's going to happen on Friday. Big debate whether that's a good decision politically, because, of course, it's going to be on the day that the Tories are expected to be wiped out in the by-elections. Or if it's actually a good idea to try and get their portfolios, their new house in order ahead of conference season in the autumn.
Well, the worrying thing is, of course, that a reshuffle, when you take out one of the few ministers who is A, known to the public, B, successful, is rather frightening. And they've got a list in the Telegraph online, which is why I'm groping around with my mobile phone, which gives a list of the people who might replace him. Now, let me try this one on you. James Heapy.
He's Defence Minister underneath Ben Wallace.
Right. And then there's a man called John Glenn. I thought he was an intergalactic astronaut.
He's a boring Treasury guy.
Yeah, but, you know, you guys know that.
Yeah.
But my suggestion
because
would
Isabel
be...
and I are...
yeah, but you're sort of shadows, really. But Heapy and Glenn are not even household names in our own front rooms, and they're about to become Defence Secretary.
Well, they can't both be Defence Secretary.
No, but they're on the shortlist. The point is, they're probably very nice people. They help old ladies across roads. They're kind to animals. But they're not senior enough to be senior cabinet minister.
Especially when there's a war in Europe. But it is interesting who the Prime Minister will choose, and there is this theory that he will go for John Glenn because he's a Treasury man, and there's been
because
ongoing
he's a
tension
supporter
between the Treasury and the Minister of Defence over funding, you know, trying to fund Ukraine and everything else that goes on with trying to have decent army in this country, or whether they go for James Heapy, who will argue against the Prime Minister and the cuts and everything that are coming.
I mean, I just think that it would so much help if politicians felt the need to become known to the public. These awful anonymous people they get put into big jobs. It used not to be like that, you know.
Well, David was always, obviously, a great figure.
No, but I'm not talking about me, but I'm talking about...
He rubbed shoulders with big beasts in the government.
Yeah,
I'm talking about big beasts.
But actually, they do go on television, and I mean, quite often when we're doing the papers, David, you have a government spokesperson who is absolute rubbish. I mean, some of them are so boring, you can barely keep your eyes open while they're on. So actually, the whole Tory party needs to think about what they're doing and having these dull
does Labour. What it is, it's politics no longer attracting people with charisma. You know, most of this lot think, to quote an old joke, charisma's December the 25th, you know.
And on that note, we'll bring the curtain down on the first newspaper review of the morning. The guys, Scarlett and David, will be back at just after 7:30. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, production on Harry and Meghan's £80 million Netflix project is at risk due to the ongoing US writers and actors strike, because, of course, they're going to need lots of writers for that. Sorry. I was a little...
So catty. So
it's fictitious.
Meghan, you've got to have a laugh.
Sorry, I just couldn't resist that.
It's a laugh trigger.
Well, the couple are having to pause production for their upcoming humanitarian documentary, which will take place in South Africa.
I don't know why you're laughing about that, but it's not funny.
But no, but what I was thinking about was all the people that will be writing for them, and anyway, there we go. Kenzie Schofield joins us live from Los Angeles on this one. So, what does this mean, Kenzie? What does this mean? I mean, I couldn't care less. I won't be watching whatever they do anyway. But just tell us what was planned in the pipeline.
That's right, yeah. Prince Harry wanted to basically pay tribute to his mother by going to South Africa and kind of retracing her steps. and just documenting how they need help, how the world can step in. However, this strike has put all, the Sussex's plans at a standstill. We know Meghan specifically wanted to go into rom-coms. Archewell had hired a slew of scripted writers and producers, so that obviously is at a standstill as well. But here in the States, Page Six is reporting that this has just ignited the rumors that Harry and Meghan are in trouble marriage-wise, that these professional failures have really created friction at home. So you're seeing outlets for the first time like Page Six and Radar and some of these, I mean, truly, Page Six and the New York Post are one of the biggest gossip, entertainment, celebrity sites here in the States. You're seeing them for the first time say, is there trouble at home? Are Harry and Meghan even sleeping under the same roof? And it really stems from these personal failures that they're struggling to deal with, on a global scale. It's embarrassing to them.
Gosh, and so where do they go from here? I mean, how long is this writers' strike predicted to go on for? Because there's a lot of anger about AI and, the not proper responsibility for all of the writers as well. And that has big implications for their ambitions, as you say.
I mean, I'm hearing 6 months to a year, if I'm being honest with you. I don't know if you saw the headlines. Mandy Moore with 6 cents in royalties, 86 cents. And then I saw another friend of mine who was on the show Big Time Rush say, when I'm on Paramount Plus, when you see my show on Netflix, do you how much I get in royalties? 0. So, I mean, they really are, digging their nails in. You're seeing bigger stars come out and try to fight for what they believe is right. And I don't know if I see an end in sight when it comes to these strikes.
I'd like to know more, Kinsey, about how they earn, what the rates are that they earn, and why. I mean, I have this whole issue about royalties. I mean, who on earth, nobody gets paid for a job that they've already done somewhere else down the line. But writers and actors believe it's their right to do this. So it's a whole debate. It strikes home because here in the UK there are a lot of films in production. Last night in Belfast there was one cancelled, How to Train Your Dragon, which was being shot or just about to go into production in Belfast, and that was cancelled as well. So this will hit Cardiff, it will hit Scotland as well, it'll hit Yorkshire. There's a lots of places, and London as well. So it affects all of us, I suppose.
You're absolutely right. But I'm thinking if this Netflix deal is all Harry and Meghan have, if this is their bread and butter, I wonder if they would go as far as to resorting to being on camera, doing some unscripted content. Meghan was pitching cooking shows before she married Prince Harry or started dating Prince Harry. In the UK, she found an agent there and was pitching like a travel cooking show. So would they resort to being on camera again and having to put themselves out there solely to save this Netflix deal? I think it's possible.
OK.
Watch this space.
Very good. We can't watch your space anymore. We're out of time. Thank you, Kinsey.
But I do like the bow in your hair. It's very pretty.
I thought that was sunglasses.
No, it's a very pretty bow.
Oh, I thought
love
you plunked sunglasses.
Very on trend.
Oh, right.
It's gorgeous.
It's even better looking there.
Thanks, Kinsey. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
For now, though, will you need your sunglasses? Here's Aidan McGivern with the forecast.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GBNews.
Hi there, good morning to you. It's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A brighter day for many of us today, sunny spells, but there'll be further showers, especially towards the east. It's towards the east where yesterday's rain is moving away, but still some showers first thing, and then into the afternoon more widely, a mixture of sunny spells and showers emerging. The most frequent and heaviest showers will be towards the east. The driest and brightest weather will be for Wales and the southwest, where some places won't see any showers at all, and it will stay largely dry with sunny spells. 22 Celsius there for Exeter, 16 for Sunderland. So you can see this east-west, north-south contrast in the temperatures. And the showers in the east will continue for some time into the evening, but eventually clear spells will emerge across the UK. Showers really just confined to the north of Scotland, northern parts of Northern Ireland overnight, and with clear skies elsewhere and with lighter winds. We've got cool air in place at the moment, so low double figures, mid to high single figures in some sheltered spots as we wake up on Thursday. Plenty of sunshine, though, first thing Thursday, but quite quickly that cloud will build once again and we'll see showers developing initially across Wales, central parts of England, but more widely into the afternoon. However, it's towards the south and perhaps across central parts of Scotland where we'll see fewer showers, and with temperatures in the brighter spots reaching low 20s, it won't feel too unpleasant. Wetter weather this weekend.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, do stay with us. We're expecting the latest inflation figures any minute now. We'll have full analysis of them in just a moment. Stay with us.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my new show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m, where real people get to meet those in power and hold them to account. Every week, we'll be hearing your views from up and down the country in the real world. Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Inflation figures will be released imminently amid predictions it could fall to its lowest level in over a year.
If we get too excited, that won't be very low, just be lower than this time last year. At the time, 1 minute past 7 o'clock on this Wednesday, the 19th of July, you're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. So the latest inflation data will be published in just a moment. Predictions of a drop following a fall in grocery prices. Our business and economics editor Liam Halligan is here with those numbers as they're released.
Inflation was 8.7% in May. What will the number be in June? Is it coming down? Is the cost of living crisis easing? And what does it all mean for interest rates as the Bank of England decides what to do?
You'd be a good game show host. That would work out well. And then we stay with finance. Nigel Farage, he says he's evidence that Coutts Bank closed his account on personal and political grounds. He claims internal documents reveal he was axed because his views didn't align with the values of Coutts Bank.
2 cruise ships set to house 1,000 asylum seekers have been returned to their owners after being unable to find anywhere to dock. Approaches by the giant vessels were rejected in Liverpool, London and Edinburgh.
Jaguar Land Rover will build an electric car battery factory, creating up to 9,000 jobs. The new plant in Somerset is being described as the most important investment in the UK automotive industry since Nissan in the 1980s.
And red alerts are in place across many parts of Europe, including Italy, Greece and Spain. As wildfires are continuing to wreak havoc, we'll have the latest forecast for you here.
No sign of the European heatwave affecting the UK anytime soon, but will we at least see any brighter weather in between the showers? I'll have the full forecast in the next hour or so.
Teased us enough. Let's get those inflation figures. Liam Halligan, what are they?
Morning, Eamonn. The numbers have just come through. The scores are in, as they say in another form of television. Look, this is actually quite a good number. 8.7% in May. In June, the consumer price index was 7.9% higher than it was in June 2022. You know, I was at a bit of a soiree at the Treasury last night. It's the sort of thing I do. And a very senior government member in the Treasury told me that inflation would be around 8.2%. It's 7.9%. Look, it's still historically very high.
Yeah,
but it's at the lower end of expectations.
Nearly a percentage point, isn't it?
I don't think this is enough of a drop, though, I'm afraid, to stop the Bank of England raising interest rates when the Monetary Policy Committee next meets on the 3rd of August. I do think interest rates are still going to go up.
But are we not feeling the pain, Liam? Do we not get the message? Do we not know money is expensive? We can't afford to spend it. There's not a lot of it about. Why do we need even more pain?
Look, in my side hustle job, my Sunday Telegraph column, I've been writing for 2.5 months now that the Bank of England should pause these interest rate rises. We've already had 13 in a row. Monetary policy, that is changes in interest rates, they operate with long and variable lags. There's enough pain going on in the economy. The economy is already growing slowly. It's stalled, in fact, as the last growth figures showed not so long ago. I think it's time that the bank took time out, held its breath and waited to see the implications of the interest rate rises we've already had. And this is enough of a drop that debate, which only renegades like me have been trying to foment in recent weeks, that is now going to be a live debate. Should the bank pause or should the bank impose yet more pain?
And Liam, it's been a long time since actually experts have been wrong for the better. You know, all those predictions that it's going to be 8.2, actually to come in underneath, the Treasury will be very pleased.
And you're exactly right, Isabel. You've put your finger on it. This is a psychologically important moment. This CPI headline number is better than almost everybody expected, including, let me say, the most senior members of the Treasury team when I spoke to them last night.
And so, you know, as you say, that should be good news for all of us. But, you know, there is always a time lag with these things. What do you think it's down to, the fact that it's down to 7.9%? Is this the reduction in food inflation, or you know, what would this be attributable to?
Let's be clear, this is about inflation. This is rates of increases in prices. This doesn't mean prices are down. It just means that they're going up a bit less quickly. So it's not great news, but it's a lot better than inflation going up. I think this is mainly due to energy prices. If you consider what happened to energy prices this time last year or in June last year, that was 2 or 3 months after Putin's invasion of Ukraine. It's when energy markets on a global level were going completely nuts. They were peaking as we went into the summer, as given all the energy needs that the world has. So I think this is good news. It's better than I expected. I thought it would be 8 or 8.1. The fact it's psychologically below 8, it's coming down. It's a big drop, as you say, and that's important.
But you were talking about energy prices there coming down, but food inflation is a big factor of what we're talking about here. What about this grain deal between Russia and Ukraine and the fact that Russia have ripped it up?
This is absolutely vital, Eamonn. Russia and Ukraine, between them, are huge producers of grain, maize, sunflower oil, all these kind of staples that go into basic products. Food which is used largely actually in North Africa and on the Horn of Africa, countries that are often blighted by famine, unfortunately. The fact that this grain deal, look, it was always going to end on the 17th of July because it was struck on the 17th of July 2022. The fact that the Kiev Bridge was blown up with the Russians blaming the Ukrainians the day it was meant to expire meant that the Kremlin was even more determined that it was going to expire. They are saying it could be reinstated. President Putin is meeting President Erdogan of Turkey later this month. That is significant because it was Turkey who, together with the UN, brokered the deal last time round. If that deal isn't restored, then expect ongoing high food price inflation.
The Prime Minister started the year by saying he wanted to halve inflation by the end of the year. We started around 10%. Suddenly, when we're in the sort of 7 ballpark, it does feel like this actually could be one of the pledges possibly he might achieve by December.
I think he will achieve this pledge, or I should say more accurately, I do think this pledge will be achieved. It's not down to him. This is down to the pain that the broader economy is enduring.
Would it be embarrassing if it didn't get there?
I don't even think interest rate rises now are lowering inflation. I think interest rate rises are adding to firms' costs, the cost of finance, and actually provoking inflation. I've been writing that for many months. I've been dismissed as ridiculous for saying those things. But this is now a live debate. Should we raise rates more? We've just seen a very significant fall in headline inflation. This is not... Inflation isn't going to go down because of anything that Rishi Sunak does, but you can bet your bottom dollar, if he can start talking about an easing cost of living crisis, if he can point to inflation of 5% or lower at the end of the year, it's not going to do his electoral prospects any harm.
OK, let's talk about Nigel Farage now. We've got Alex Crowley in beside us as well, political analyst. And basically, Farage says, look, they got rid of me because they didn't like my politics. Could come back and say, no, 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 it's because you didn't have enough money, Nigel. And now Nigel has been able to unearth emails that basically say that they believe that his views don't align with their values. So we're going to get Liam's opinion in a minute. Alex, what way do you politically see this, or where is Nigel Farage is exonerated now in all of this?
Yes, and Coots have been very amateurish in the way that they've handled this. They knew full well that he had the ability to request the documents held about him. This is how he's got this information. Anyone can do this. If you worry about your bank cancelling you, you can put in a subject access request and see what dossier they've compiled on you. This is what Nigel Farage have done. They knew this would come out, and they also knew that Nigel, being Nigel, will have something to say about it and has a media platform on which to say it. So from a purely communications perspective, this was very badly handled. Now, the principle of the decision that they took is even more worrying, because if we are now saying that we're living in a world where your bank can cancel you because apparently you don't fit in with their so-called values, and you hold political opinions that they don't happen to agree with, then where does that end? Does that mean you can't go to certain shops because you don't...
But can you go to certain other banks? I mean, the thing that interests me is that, OK, so could say, we don't want you as a customer anymore, you can't be our customer anymore. So he goes phoning around 3 or 4 other banks, and they all say the same. So do they talk to each other?
Well, exactly, or apparently they all follow the other's lead. And, of course, if you can't get a bank account, then that actually puts your status as a citizen almost at risk, doesn't it? Because if you don't have a bank account, then how can you transact in ordinary life? That, some could argue that being able to access a bank account as a legal citizen of a country is almost a right, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, look, let's listen to what Nigel Farage himself had to say about all of this, because he has, as Eamonn said, obtained documents which showed that Coots is actually not being true in all of this. Let's listen to how he describes it.
Quote, the committee did not think continuing to bank Nigel Farage was compatible with Coots, given his publicly stated views that were at odds with our position as an inclusive organisation. Their recommendation was that once I'd paid off my mortgage, which I did in early March of this year, that my Coots account should be shut down. In April, I received a telephone call to say my account was being closed. I received a letter confirming the account would be closed, no reasons given whatsoever. It's only when that I complained to the chairman that I got a phone call from Coots saying it was being done for commercial reasons. Well, on the 17th of November last year, that clearly wasn't the case. Now, bear in mind, this is important. This is not just about Coots, and it's not just about me, because NatWest is part of the same banking group, and they have 19 million customers. So the culture that exists within these organisations, how they treat their customers, matters to a huge number of people in this country.
And he's absolutely right, isn't he, Liam? This isn't about politics. This isn't about Nigel Farage. This is a really important issue, and the government actually alive to the concerns that he has.
Well, again, at the Treasury last night, I knew this story was breaking. I've been talking to Nigel, who is, of course, our colleague, for a couple of days about this story. I've read the document that he has. Look, it isn't minutes of a meeting, as the BBC said on the Today programme this morning. This is a 40-page, very heavily researched document that Coutts produced internally. It just so happens that Nigel and his lawyers have managed to extract it from Coutts. The Economic Secretary to the Treasury, Andrew Griffiths, is, I know, alive to this issue. He's concerned that political issues may be determining who gets a bank account or not. There's a huge amount of economic news around at the moment. I'm going to be very busy today. You've got this inflation number. You've got this announcement, which we haven't... I know you've been talking about it, of the new gigafactory.
Well, it's funny you should say that. We've just had it confirmed in the last minute. Tata Group
we would be leading on that story all day. This is thousands of jobs. This is a big breakthrough for the British car industry, hopefully. And yet there's also this major story. What I would say is that talking with journalists last night at this Treasury shindig, even journalists who I've known for years, who are very... Nigel Farage is not their favourite person. They're very kind of Remain, metropolitan views, as Nigel would see it. Not Nigel Farage's friends at all. They were absolutely shocked that a bank like Coutts would be saying, we're not going to give this bloke a bank account because his values, quotes, don't align with our purpose and aims. The purpose and aims of a bank is to, within the law and responsibly, provide a service for customers without fear or favour and provide a return to shareholders.
So do you think he has some recourse via the FCA, the Financial Conduct?
I think he has enormous recourse, and also, with huge respect to everybody involved, via the courts. This is a libel. If you write stuff that more than one people read, that's a libel.
Right, well, we're just going to give Coutts their right of reply before we move on, because now the Prime Minister's commenting on this gigafactory as well. I want to talk about that. But in reply, Coutts said, our ability to respond is restricted by our obligations of client confidentiality.
Decisions to close accounts aren't taken lightly and take into account a number of factors, including commercial viability, reputational considerations and legal and regulatory requirements.
But let's return to that Jaguar Land Rover story. As I was saying, Tata themselves, who own the car giant Jaguar Land Rover, they themselves confirming that they plan to invest $4 billion in this battery plant in Somerset. And the Prime Minister coming out and saying Tata Group's multi-billion-pound investment in the UK is a testament to the strength of our car manufacturing industry and its skilled workers. The question is, Alex, how much has the government given in subsidies to encourage this investment into the UK?
Well, we have various figures banded about what the government has had to offer in order to get this deal over the line. I look at it as an investment. Everyone knows if you want to bring the really big players into the UK economy, you need to give them something in return. You need to pay for it, right? So let's say that the government have given $500 million. That's the quota. That's the figure that's been quoted in the press this morning. Fine, OK, that's fine. As long as we get the return to the UK economy from it, it's a good deal.
When we see what happened with British Volt earlier in the year, I mean, it's a difficult area to emerge in.
It is a difficult area, but you would hope that obviously a group of that size and that global reach would be slightly a better bet. And obviously we look at the fact that we are competing with the European Union, with the United States for these gigafactories. It's got to be something we have to do.
But can I be a bit cynical and suggest that perhaps the announcement of all of this is timed very coincidentally just 2 days before a by-election 20 minutes down the road in Somerton and Frome, in the same county?
Completely coincidental that this announcement has been made at this time. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to make a difference to the election.
Maybe not.
Right, Alex,
9,000 possible jobs, though.
Thank you both very much indeed. So inflation is slightly down, nearly by a full percentage point. And
7.9.
Yeah. So that has to be good news. Let's bring you up to date with what else is happening news-wise.
The NHS is bracing for one of the toughest strikes in its history this week, with its medical director warning routine care will be virtually at a standstill. Consultant doctors are striking for 48 hours from 7 a.m. on Thursday through to 7 a.m. on Saturday.
Councils are warning that the government's proposed bus revolution is completely failing to fix the steep decline in rural services as journeys hit an historic low. The County Council's network, which represents local authorities, says the failure undermines the levelling up agenda.
The King and Queen watched performances of Shakespeare last night as they marked the bard's contribution to the life and culture of the nation. The royal couple were treated to extracts from some of the most famous scenes in the English language to celebrate the 400th anniversary of the first printing of Shakespeare's collected plays. Lucky them.
It was like Shakespeare's greatest hits, wasn't it?
Probably the best way to do it. Just cut from one best one to the next, rather than all the bits in between.
OK, these by-elections, which we just referred to, voting will take place in the Selby and Anstey constituency tomorrow, as it will in the other two constituencies, after the resignation of staunch Boris Johnson supporter Mr Nigel Adams.
Yes, there are, of course, these three by-elections on Thursday, all in seats that are held currently by the Conservatives.
Well, our reporter Anna Riley went to speak to the people living there.
Selby and Ainstey has been held by the Conservatives since its inception in 2010. Nestled in the North Yorkshire countryside, the seat's a mix of rural villages and towns. And with a majority of more than 20,000 votes in the 2019 election, it's assumed to be a safe blue heartland. But what do people here in Selby want for the area from their next MP?
I haven't decided what way I'm going to vote yet. But I want to make sure that education, but early years education, is a high agendaed item.
Employment, transport, infrastructure.
It was a really nice market town. I know it's got bigger, but the trouble is it's got worse. It's in a market town no more.
Selby is a beautiful place to live, but it has a lot of things that need changing. For me in particular, the NHS. It's very, very hard to get into doctors' surgeries to see people.
Improvement in the National Health Service, particularly in the dentists around here. Yes, because they're all going private and it's not right for National Health people.
I'm only voting because I have to do.
The political parties may have found a tougher opponent than each other here, and that's despondency among voters. Helen Terry manages the Hub Cafe in the heart of the town and feels apathy towards the ballot box.
I'm not voting, no. Not interested, really. Whoever gets in's not going to make any difference, and they're not going to do anything any different because it's all going to come down to can't afford it, money, nothing, really. Can't really see the point.
The cost of living has put a strain on businesses like this one, and Helen would like to see more investment in the high street to bring more customers to Selby.
All it consists of is like hairdressers, nail places, phone shops, you know, things what people don't need really. People need sort of clothes shops, and it's a quaint little town. It could really be done like York. You know, if they pulled the people in, it's got a beautiful abbey and everything. It's sad. It's just dead.
With a general election creeping ever closer, it will be interesting to see if voters in this constituency decide to stick with the Conservatives or put their faith in another party to deliver for the area. Anna Riley, GB News, Selby.
Thank you, Anna. Let's give you a list of all the candidates in the area. Andrew Philip Gray, Independent. Claire Holmes, no relation, the Conservative Party. Mike Jordan, Yorkshire Party. Dave Kent, Reform UK. Keir Alexander Mather, who's the Labour Party.
And Nick Palmer, he's for the Independent Party. Guy Phoenix for the Heritage Party. Sir Archibald Stanton for the official monster raving loony party. And Matt Walker is standing for the Lib Dems. Arnold Francis Warneken for the Green Party. Crikey, quite some names going on there.
Yeah, not finished yet. John William Waterston, Social Demographic Party. Luke Wellock, the Climate Party. Tyler Wilson Kerr, the Independent Party.
Well, here with your forecast, and it's a very straightforward name, Aidan McGivern.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, good morning to you. It's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A brighter day for many of us today, sunny spells, but there'll be further showers, especially towards the east. It's towards the east where yesterday's rain is moving away, but still some showers first thing, and then into the afternoon more widely, a mixture of sunny spells and showers emerging. The most frequent and heaviest showers will be towards the east. The driest and brightest weather will be for Wales and the southwest, where some places won't see any showers at all, and it will stay largely dry with sunny spells. 22 Celsius there for Exeter, 16 for Sunderland. So you can see this east-west, north-south contrast in the temperatures. And the showers in the east will continue for some time into the evening, but eventually clear spells will emerge across the UK. Showers really just confined to the north of Scotland, northern parts of Northern Ireland overnight, and with clear skies elsewhere and with lighter winds. We've got cool air in place at the moment, so low double figures, mid to high single figures in some sheltered spots as we wake up on Thursday. Plenty of sunshine though first thing Thursday, but quite quickly that cloud will build once again and we'll see showers developing initially across Wales, central parts of England, but more widely into the afternoon. However, it's towards the south and perhaps across central parts of Scotland where we'll see fewer showers, and with temperatures in the brighter spots reaching low 20s, it won't feel too unpleasant. Wetter weather this weekend.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
On the Coutts banking row involving Nigel Farage, Anne says, as Nigel Farage isn't consistent with Coutts' values, I wonder if Prince Andrew has been retained as a customer. Interesting question. 23 minutes past 7 next, after a major British business tells applicants they don't need to bring a CV if they're looking for a job, we'll ask, what's the future of CVs? Right, so anyway, is there an alternative? What is the alternative? Debating that next.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching. Britain's watching. Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
7:27. What's got you chuckling this morning?
No, we're going to talk about CVs, to CV or not CV. But there's a story here in the Mail, and the headline is, Fire Chief with no training quits over friendship with the man who hired her.
Didn't need a CV there.
Didn't need a CV there. Well, very good.
Well, we'll be debating that next, but we still have lots of other things still to come on the programme this morning. At 8 o'clock, we'll be speaking to the government, Grant Shapps, in fact, the Energy Minister, to get his reaction to the latest inflation figures. And we'll ask him what support the government will offer people in the face of a potential 14th interest rate rise.
8:45, live to Spain, where the red alerts are in place as extreme heat and wildfires ravage so much of Europe.
And keep those thoughts coming in. GBViews at gbnews.com.
CVs, right. The days of job applicants spending hours touching up a CV could soon be numbered, as the brewing giant Molson Coors says that it scrapped CVs when people apply for some roles.
Well, they say it'll encourage diversity and lessen the focus on what university an applicant attended. So could this be the start of a new era for job hunters, or...
I don't see how it encourages diversity.
Well, I guess it doesn't just exclusively mean those that have got all the correct grades. It could be someone with a more colourful background or less academic background could get accepted into the same jobs.
But you could still see that from a CV. I do understand. I think a CV's quite a stuffy thing. It wouldn't be the only barometer that I would use if I was employing someone. But is it still a crucial aspect of getting a job and finding a career? Let's go to Chris McGovern. Chris is from the Campaign for Real Education, and he's going to discuss this. We hope to have someone up against you, Charlie Mullins, hopefully shortly. We're just having a bit of a problem with his lines. But Chris, the clue's in the title there about real education. Real education is obviously important to you, and stating its pedigree is important.
Absolutely. I mean, education that prepares people for the world of work is important. It has to work. And when we talk about real education, we mean education which does what it says on the tin. And we want children to leave school who are employable and who can produce a good CV. But certainly the feedback we get from employers is that increasingly these days, they're not putting too much value on the CV, or not so much value on the qualifications, because everybody gets the high grades these days, it seems. So they want to have practical experience. I want to see the employer or the potential employer on the job, if you like. So when I was a head teacher in North London, I would interview many candidates. I would look at the CV, but obviously when they came to teach in my school, they'd have to perform, they'd have to teach a lesson or two. I would observe them before I appointed them, and then they'd be on probation. So I think CVs have a role, but CVs don't guarantee success. I mean, interestingly today, we have a big news story, the Ukraine-Russian war. But the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, his CV wouldn't fit. He was a comedian. And now he's a great leader. Winston Churchill, his CV was one of political failure. At the moment, in 1940, he became prime minister. He became a great leader. So the CV can help, but it can also mislead people. So CVs have a part to play, but I wouldn't rely just on the CV. I think, can a person do the job? And sometimes we have to look beyond the CV, and we have to look beyond the qualifications, because everybody these days is getting such high grades. The qualifications don't distinguish between the excellent and the very good.
Yeah, and I suppose CVs don't just focus on your education. I think what I personally think is useful from CVs is detailing your experience. It tells you not only is this person bright, hopefully you can tell that from their results in school, but also what have they learned, how long have they been doing this, and will I be getting, you know, the package that I want when I employ them?
Yeah, I mean, look, the TV is important to sift out who can actually perhaps be considered for the job. Absolutely right. You know, if you're going to employ a lorry driver, you want to make sure that their CV shows they've passed a driving test. So there's a role for the CV, absolutely. But there's also recognition that often people who've got a great shining CV aren't actually any good. And then people who perhaps have a less good CV can be very good. So I do quite applaud this idea that we should broaden things a little bit more, but we can't discard the CV. But we should indeed include people who perhaps on the CV basis aren't that great, but actually can do the job very well. Okay. And, you know, so I'm a bit flexible on this. I'm a bit sitting on the fence, but I think there's an argument on both sides.
Well, Chris, we're given the job of going up against you to Charlie Mullins, businessman, entrepreneur, founder of Pimlico Plumbers. So we've established connection to Charlie there in Spain.
Good morning to you, Charlie.
Hiya.
Thanks for persevering with that.
Good morning.
Charlie, what's the harm in a CV? Why is it not for you when it comes to hiring people?
Well, I mean, look, as you know, most CVs are done by themselves and you can make them say what you want, and unfortunately people exaggerate it and they put a lot of rubbish on them, basically, a lot of unnecessary stuff. I think it can do you more harm than good because, you know, they start talking about, you know, they've done this walk and they, you know, done this for the community and this type of thing. It's not the important things. The important things is, you know, your job experience and what you can offer. And I think you can only find that in an interview. So I find a lot of CVs are just rubbish. I mean, if I'm being honest, if they're more than about one page, there's no point in them because they're just waffling on about things that are out of date and quite often exaggerated. So I don't see it as a way forward. I think what's happening now is it's a great way that you just get them in, fill in an application form and ask the questions that you need to ask and let somebody sort of speak to you in front of you rather than dressing up a CV.
But Charlie, how would you decide who you would bring in for interview? Because presumably you can't do that for everyone who wants to work for Pimlico Plumbers.
We can't do what for everybody?
Bring in everyone that wants a job with you for an interview. You have to whittle that down somehow.
No, you don't bring them in. I mean, you talk to them on the phone and that starts. Okay. You ask them the questions that you need to ask them, you know, how many jobs they've had, how often they move around, what are they looking to achieve, where have they worked in the past, how much time they have off sick. I mean, you ask them the questions that they wouldn't put on the CV. And, you know, obviously about the experience, obviously you're already asking them that. And I think that's what we used to do anyhow. We'd do it over the telephone before we even got them in. Then they fill in the application form and they'll be giving us the information that we require, you know, not about they played for the school netball team or the football team or that type of thing. You know, the important parts.
It's interesting.
But I suppose what you're saying, Charlie, is you know who you want when you see them, when you hear them. You know what their personality is. It's stuff that comes alive from a piece of paper, which would be a CV, but you see them in the flesh and you can tell pretty quickly whether this person's for you or not. I'm assuming that's what you're saying.
Exactly it. I think by the way they present themselves, by their attitude, by the keenness on the person and what their approach is to the job. And, you know, we used to often find, you know, what they know about the company, and often if they've not done their own work and checked the company out, they have no value. And a lot of that, I think it can only come out in a one-to-one, but as I say, we would do a phone call interview first to see whether they're acceptable to come in. And then when they come in, if they weren't presentable, we just used to get rid of them, basically. I mean, you know, it's, you know, often the CV can be very deceiving and, you know, not many people put a bad CV together. Obviously, they're trying to dress it up. And, I mean, some of the CVs come in, they was after my job, you know, and, you know, half of them couldn't bang a nail in.
Chris McGovern, do you think there's any truth in the fact that actually sometimes the best academic qualifications could actually make you totally inappropriate for the workplace? I mean, Eamon's often been crossed that in this industry, traditionally, there used to be a lot of Oxbridge candidates, but used to say what they knew about television you could write on your little finger, you know. Whereas, you know, quite often some of these really super bright people don't have many practical skills when it comes to real life and perhaps indeed doing some of those important jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I'm with Charlie on this. I mean, Charlie's part of the campaign for real plumbing. I'm part of the campaign for real education. You've got to be able to do the job. And CVs can mislead you. And they can, as Charlie says, they can be dressed up. But at the same time, they do set out the experience. So as an initial processing document, they're important. But it is the capacity to do the job. And we have too much reliance sometimes, I think, on qualifications, particularly public examinations. I mean, we know from what employers tell us that increasingly these days, as I said, everyone's got the qualifications. They've got these great grades. We've got record grade inflation in this country. So the grades and the exams don't mean a great deal. What really means a lot is, can you do the job? Can you communicate? Can you work with other people? And as a head teacher, I was very interested when I appointed staff that they should go and teach a lesson. I'd watch them. How do they relate to the children? You could be a stuffy academic, brilliant, but can't talk to children. And if you're going to be a teacher, you've got to be able to talk to children. So there are other skills that don't ever come out on the CV, and they're
absolutely
probably crucial.
And we should be educating a lot of them for the job, for the marketplace. But listen, Charlie and Chris, if it was up to us, we'd give both of you the job. Thank you very much indeed for highlighting all of that. We'll leave it there. Thank you.
Do stay with this. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I think in my life I've only ever had to write one CV.
Yeah, we do a funny old job though, don't we?
Well, this was to get a job in Primark.
Oh, right.
Yes, I got it.
And you got it. There you go.
I lied a bit a few times on it and whatever. No one ever checked it. It was all fine. But you see, there are things... Are you allowed, when you see someone in the flesh, right? Someone writes you paper CV, right?
Yeah.
Boom. And then you meet them in the flesh and say they've got bad breath.
No, you're not allowed to make that comment.
You're not allowed to discriminate against them on that. So say someone reeked of BO and you thought, well, I don't want them in my office. You can't discriminate on that basis.
No. Discrimination generally is pretty much frowned upon.
Well, that's ridiculous, isn't it?
Bring back discrimination.
Well, say they had horrible teeth or something.
Amen.
And they were a people person, you had them on reception.
Well, look, the reality is it happens. People have heard about it recently, that someone was being appointed purely because she was pretty and blonde. But
if she was pretty and blonde and she had a great personality, she could do all that, but she hadn't got the exact qualifications. It's a funny old thing. I just believe that when you meet someone in the flesh, you know whether they are good for the job or not. Scarlett Maguire and David Mellor, very good for the job. They're doing the papers next.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But boom.
And action.
Sergeant, read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Just to let you know, the latest inflation figure came out 45 minutes ago. It stands at 7.9%.
Yeah, and in the last few minutes, we've been hearing from the Chancellor. Here's what he had to say.
Reaction to the inflation figures this morning?
It's obviously welcome news that inflation has fallen, and it shows that if the government and the Bank of England are prepared to take difficult decisions, we can win the battle against inflation. But nonetheless, for families up and down the country, prices are still rising much too fast. There's a long way to go. If we look at inflation at 3% in the US, 5.5% in the Eurozone, you can see that if we stick to the plan, we can bring down inflation. And that's what this government is utterly determined to do.
Difficult decisions from the government and the Bank of England, as you said. Do you think, in light of these positive figures, that the bank should consider slowing down its pace of interest rate rises now?
Well, what we've seen is the bank has taken very difficult decisions, and the government has taken very difficult decisions in the autumn statement to make sure that we really do start to bring down inflation. And we're seeing the first fruits of that, but there's a long way to go, and we need to remember that families are still feeling a lot of pressure with very high food price inflation. Although fuel prices have come down, they're still significantly higher than they were a few years ago. And so we need to stick to the plan to halve inflation, to bring it back even beyond that to the Bank of England's target rate of 2%. But we can see from other countries, if we do that, we will succeed, and we can put this very difficult period for households behind us.
Well, that was the Chancellor there reacting to the breaking news this morning that inflation has dropped to 7.9%, which is lower than pretty much all experts were anticipating.
OK, Scarlett Maguire and David Miller here to review the papers. David Miller is a former chief executive to the Treasury.
Secretary. That's what I thought. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
So who sent the CV? I'd like to see the CV of that one.
You see, this CV is obviously useless.
I know. So basically, my problem, my worry with interest rates. So the Bank of England are predicted for 14th month in a row, put them up again. Surely there's enough pain. Surely all of this is doing is just hurting people and putting businesses out of operation.
I'm glad you've given me the chance to say that, because I thought Jeremy sounded... I mean, look, I like Jeremy. He just isn't a Treasury Minister, really. And he's trying to persuade us he is a Treasury Minister when he has no background in the Treasury. 7.9% is nothing to boast about. And the governor of the Bank of England plays one club golf. 13 times he's increased interest rates in a row. And his job was to keep interest rates at 2%. Well, here, is 7.9% on that, against that background anything to boast about? And I think that the government, if they expect us to go cheering through the streets, that interest rates that inflation is 7.9%, they've got to be joking.
But actually, it's worse than that. It's that Andrew Bailey blames us. The head of the Bank of England says, "Well, you know, you've got to not take pay rises, as though it's our fault that inflation is high."
He got it wrong. He printed too much money, and he presided over a rise in inflation, and then has taken action to deal with it, which is based on simplistic views. Inflation's gone up, let's jack up interest rates yet again. Bailey should be looking at this from a dole queue, but that isn't happening.
Here's a simplistic view. Right, so as Scarlett was saying, they say to workers, hey, don't ask for a pay rise, it's bad for inflation. Could you not, in reverse, say to people, hey, hold on to your money, please don't spend it. It'll be good for all of us if you don't.
But, you know, the people that are in the news, I mean, what annoys me about this Coutts fiasco is that the head of NatWest, which is 39% owned by the public, do you know what she took home? 5.2 million. What's that all about, you know?
Yeah.
And then people who earn that kind of money, or governments that preside over, when they have influence over what somebody earns, is prepared to see it jacked up like that, are telling people who are on, you know, £200 a week or whatever, you can't have more, it's inflationary. I'm sorry, I'm increasingly disillusioned with a lot of this nonsense.
Scarlett, can we talk about the story on the front of the Metro? This was the story that broke from the appeals court yesterday, as the mother who had a very late abortion using these at-home tablets had her sentence reversed and was allowed to go home. I chose actually deliberately not to name her, and I do actually object to the fact that she's been named so widely. I think it's really intrusive.
I think what happened to her was terrible, because clearly, I mean, no woman has an abortion easily. She was desperate. I mean, we all know that late abortions are had by people who are desperate. And she's a mother of 3. In the days that she's been jailed, she's not been allowed to see any of her children, have any communication with her children, right? One of whom is autistic. I mean, this is absolutely terrible. And you just wonder, I mean, as the appeal judges said, this woman isn't a danger to anybody. I mean, yes, she broke the law. Yes, something has to be done. But to jail her, and then the Crown Prosecution Service said it wasn't a difficult sentence. She should have had it. I mean, of course she should be allowed out. And we should understand that actually women seeking abortions, they're doing it for...
But Scarlett, how far gone was she?
She was very far gone.
I mean, in other words, was the fetus viable?
She was about 32.
That's outrageous, isn't it?
Well,
I mean, just to put the word on the other side.
Well, absolutely no one's saying that she shouldn't be convicted. No one's saying that. They're saying that the punishment
that's almost murder,
suitable.
Isn't it, actually?
I mean, the baby could have survived, but, you know, as Scarlett says, it's highly controversial because clearly, the woman will have had to have given birth to this dead baby, which is hugely traumatic and presumably, you know, horrible experience for her. And the judge herself saying that this should be a matter that is dealt with compassion rather than punishment.
But what about the poor potential child that was probably an actual baby? Why should he or she be polished off because the mother decides way later than she should that she wants an abortion?
I think there need to be serious questions about how she was able to get her hands on the tablets and was able to have this at-home abortion. But I personally think, and I've seen there is some cross-party support. I think Caroline Noakes has come out, and indeed Harriet Harman saying that the abortion laws are not fit for purpose. And I personally think the naming, in particular in this case, not least because of the impact on her, as you say, 3 other children, is significant as well.
In the Times, we're talking about asylum seekers. We're not talking about the Bibi Stockholm of Dorset. We're talking about cruise ships. Now, David, I haven't got my head around this story, but apparently cruise ships were being sent to Edinburgh, Liverpool and London.
Well, were intended to.
Or intended to house asylum seekers. And these ports or their local authorities have said, clear off, not in our backyard.
Yeah. This, you see, what the government are obviously trying to do is to fulfil their obligation. I regret they have this obligation to house people who have no right to be here, just turn up uninvited on a beach somewhere. But apparently we are under an obligation to house them. And the idea is, rather than spending millions, literally millions every week on hotels, they can be stuck in some cruise ship somewhere, hopefully not a particularly attractive cruise ship. But the ports are saying, no, sir, they won't accept it. So the ships are having to be sent back.
But I think,
according to the Times,
you're right that we are spending at the moment £6 million a day, not a week, £6 million a day on hotels. And actually, rather than go on about cruise ships and old RAF things, why can't we sort out the asylum system so that we keep the refugees and we send back the others? That's what we have to do, not house thousands and thousands of people in really ridiculous places. It's still going to cost us an awful lot of money. What we need to do is actually, it's the asylum system that needs to be sorted out.
The asylum system was intended for people who were fleeing persecution, and it put an obligation on the first place they went to take them in. But of course, now that isn't what happens. People go through endless safe countries. They end up in France, basically a safe country, and they come across the Channel using asylum as a basis to settle here. Well, I'm sorry, I don't accept that. So why don't the government do anything about it? Now, one of the things the government has to do is to take these, which they're belatedly trying to do now through this bill, is take these people out of the ability to, once they get here, wind up on some beach, to get a lot of free lawyers trying to persuade us that, they're the victims of this or the victims of that. There is no reason why anyone who's a genuine victim should not have already disclosed that and been taken in by one of the countries en route.
OK, folks, your views on that, very welcome. gbviews@gbnews.com, or you can tweet at GBNews. Scarlett and David will be back in 40 minutes' time.
Here's your forecast with Aidan McGibbon.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, good morning to you. It's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A brighter day for many of us today, sunny spells, but there'll be further showers, especially towards the east. It's towards the east where yesterday's rain is moving away, but still some showers first thing. And then into the afternoon, more widely, a mixture of sunny spells and showers emerging. The most frequent and heaviest showers will be towards the east. The driest and brightest weather will be for Wales and the southwest, where some places won't see any showers at all, and it will stay largely dry with sunny spells. 22 Celsius there for Exeter, 16 for Sunderland. So you can see this east-west, north-south contrast in the temperatures. And the showers in the east will continue for some time into the evening, but eventually clear spells will emerge across the UK. Showers really just confined to the north of Scotland, northern parts of Northern Ireland overnight, and with clear skies elsewhere and with lighter winds. We've got cool air in place at the moment, so low double figures, mid to high single figures in some sheltered spots as we wake up on Thursday. Plenty of sunshine though first thing Thursday, but quite quickly that cloud will build once again and we'll see showers developing initially across Wales, central parts of England, but more widely into the afternoon. However, it's towards the south and perhaps across central parts of Scotland where we'll see fewer showers, and with temperatures in the brighter spots reaching low 20s, it won't feel too unpleasant. Wetter weather this weekend.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, stay with us, we'll have more for you. More analysis of the latest inflation data as it eases to 7.9%.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Inflation eases to 7.9%. That's its lowest level in over a year.
Very good morning. Welcome to the programme. It's 8 o'clock on Wednesday, the 19th of July. You're tuned in to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, you're very welcome. Leading the news this morning.
Inflation has fallen from 8.7% in May to 7.9% in June, and it's been described as its lowest level for 15 months, in a sign that price rises may finally be slowing down. The Chancellor says despite the good news, the government isn't complacent.
We need to stick to the plan to halve inflation, to bring it back even beyond that to the Bank of England's target rate of 2%. But we can see from other countries, if we do that, we will succeed and we can put this very difficult period for households behind us.
Jaguar Land Rover has confirmed it will invest £4 billion in building an electric car battery factory in the UK, creating up to 9,000 jobs. The Prime Minister hailed the investment as a testament to the strength of the UK's automotive industry.
Nigel Farage says he has evidence that Coutts Bank closed his account on personal and political grounds. The GB News presenter claims internal documents reveal he was axed because his views didn't align with the bank's values.
2 cruise ships set to house 1,000 asylum seekers have been returned to their owners after being unable to find anywhere to dock. Approaches by the giant vessels were rejected in Liverpool, London and Edinburgh ports.
England head into a must-win Ashes 4th test at Old Trafford today. Can they keep the series alive? Paul Coit will be here with your sport.
Well, let's hope they can, Isabel. 2-1 down, 2 to go. It's Old Trafford today, and England haven't beaten Australia there in 42 years, until now.
And will the weather be kind to the England team? Red alerts, of course, in place across large swathes of Europe. How will it look here? We'll have an update for you.
Yeah, they'll not be.
No sign of the European heatwave affecting the UK anytime soon, but will we at least see any brighter weather in between the showers? I'll have the full forecast in the next hour or so.
Right, those inflation figures which came out an hour ago, 7.9%, that's down from 8.7 in May. So this means that inflation has slowed to its lowest annual rate since March 2022. Let's go to our business and economics editor, Liam Halligan, to break it all down. It's funny that we're getting excited at 8% inflation, basically.
Exactly.
Sign of the times.
It is lower than was widely expected. Inflation, as you say, Eamonn, was 8.7% in May. What does that mean? It means that the basket of goods, which the Office for National Statistics follows, was 8.7% more expensive in May than in May 2022. It's now 7.9% more expensive in June than in June 2022. I think it is important it's below 8%. That's a big psychological shift. But, you know, let's be clear. In the Eurozone, inflation is 5.5%. And in America, wait for it, 3%. So we still do have an inflation problem. It is down from a 41-year high of 11.1% in October, but it is still almost 4 times the Bank of England's 2% target. What does this mean for interest rates? It means that the Bank of England, on balance, probably will still raise interest rates on the 3rd of August when the Monetary Policy Committee next meets, but at least there'll now be a debate about whether or not they should.
Well, let's hold that thought. We've got Cabinet Minister Grant Shapps, who's there available to talk to us. Mr. Shapps, good morning to you. Nice to see you.
Morning.
Well, look, good news to talk about. When we say good news, we're getting excited that inflation's 7.9%. The point is this. We're headed in the right direction. It's a good fall. Isn't it time to tap the Bank of England on the shoulder and say, enough paying, forget about raising interest rates again?
Well, as you say, yes, still, of course, prices are still going up 7.9%. We should never forget that. But it is a good fall, as you say, from 11.1 at its peak. So we're making progress and the plan's working. But I have to say, Eamonn, I'm a firm believer in leaving the Bank of England to independently make these decisions. That's the job we task them with. We asked them to target 2% inflation. They've clearly got some way to go. I think we should leave it to them to decide on how they get us there. But of course, the government's trying to help by doing the things that we've been doing, capping energy prices this last winter with the energy price guarantee and saving families about £1,500 on what they would have been paying on their energy bills has all been part of keeping a cap on inflation.
But we do still, you could say, have an inflation problem in this country. I mean, you'll have heard Liam Halligan telling us just before about the situation in Europe, 5.5% there. And in the States, an enviable 3%. We're some way off either of those. And, of course, the Prime Minister's pledging to halve it by the end of the year.
Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, I haven't looked since the new numbers come out, but even with the previous month's number, May's number, there were 9, I calculate, EU countries with higher inflation. So we weren't in a completely unique position. But our inflation has been higher. And it's really a combination of the fact that we have very low unemployment. So we have very tight labour markets, very few additional people that you can get into the labour market, not least because we've got record number of the people employed, which is very good news, of course. But it does mean it's harder to get inflation down because just finding more people to do the job is not something which has been available to us. We've got to increase our productivity. And that's what the government's been working on, bringing more people who are out of the labour market into it, perhaps who stopped working during COVID, and we set out plans and we've been quite successful in doing that. And some of that is helping to relieve the pressure on inflation now.
Well, look, you've been trying to do your bit. You've had words with the supermarket and the petrol station bosses to say, this overcharging, we're on to you, we know what you're doing, cut it out, stop it. What sort of reaction did you get from them?
Well, I'm pleased to say that they all agreed that they would sign up to this voluntary supply of data. Now, that's important because it means that we're going to be able to publish in real time the cost of petrol at different petrol stations, something which is not available currently or only partially available. That's important. I've also told them, though, we do intend to legislate to make it the law that they have to share that information. I've no objection of them. They can charge what they like, but people should be able to know what they're charging and find that out easily. And unlike, say, an airline ticket where you could look it up online, that's not been possible before with petrol prices, and that is what is going to change. So we'll help to force that down. I have to say also our energy approach to bringing down not just the fuel prices at the petrol pumps, but also household energy bills, which dropped by an average of £426 a year from the beginning of this month, is starting to work. And it's one of the reasons today we've won this huge gigafactory investment. This is the country's largest ever car production investment that we've ever seen. It really puts the UK in the fast lane of electric vehicle production, and I'm very proud that we've brought that to the UK with all the jobs it will bring. Part of that is because of the lower energy bills that we're able to project.
And the other part of that is a hefty government subsidy. Would you care to tell us how much the taxpayer has helped to sweeten and incentivise Tata Jaguar Land Rover to come and put this plant in Bridgewater in Somerset?
Yes, and I make no sort of, I won't dodge that at all. I make no apology. It is true that not just Jaguar Land Rover, but through the Automotive Transformation Fund, other manufacturers, Nissan, for example, who are investing £1 billion in Sunderland, as Stellantis and Ellesmere Port, they all get access to this fund. I can't confirm the actual figures because it all comes out commercially in the usual way, but I can tell you that it wasn't just all about cash. It was also about our ability in R&D, for example, through the Faraday Battery Institute and our brilliant science in this country and skills, and Tata, the investing company's faith in the British economy and the way that this government is running the economy. Those are the things which have brought today 4,000 direct jobs and thousands of other indirect jobs through this deal.
OK, that's good. We're glad to hear that. Minister, can you shed some light on these cruise ships that we're hearing that the government tried to dock a cruise ship in Liverpool, in Edinburgh, in London to house asylum seekers? And we're being told that the port authorities or whatever have turned them away and said, no, not for us. Could you shed some light on that as to what happens next and who has the authority? Why, for instance, does the Bibby Stockholm, why is it able to dock in Portland and in Dorset and yet not Edinburgh, not Liverpool, not London?
Yes, I'm not involved in the sort of detail of that. And as you say, the Stockholm, which is a different ship, has docked now and it's going through final checks, and that will be able to take asylum seekers and house them appropriately. And I'm sure whatever the issues are, I'm afraid I'm not close to the detail on these other ships, will be resolved. But I think the most important point is this Conservative government is actually trying to fix the problem. We've actually passed a piece of legislation this week. 70 times Labour voted against it. They do not want to fix this problem. Fundamentally, they keep rejecting the legislation to do so, but we are insistent that the small boats must be stopped, and we're prepared to pass the legislation to do that. And things like sorting out the accommodation are one part of this much bigger picture of stopping illegal trafficking of people across the Channel.
Yeah, but Labour may want to stop it or not, as the case may be. But
well, they don't.
So does Edinburgh, so does Liverpool, so does the Port of London. We're just sort of saying who holds rank in this. I mean, why did Portland not say to you, clear off, you're not doing this in our backyard? Because people down there are not happy.
Well, look, I don't know the detail of the particular ships and what happened yesterday. What I do know is our determination to solve this problem, as demonstrated by having to defeat Labour 70 times plus in the House of Commons, and even more in the House of Lords, where Labour are also trying to defeat this bill, shows that we are the party, Conservatives are the only party who will actually, put our effort where our mouths are and try and stop these small boats. And actually, we're having some success. For the first time ever, the number of small boats crossing is actually down. The number of people crossing is actually down this year. But no thanks to Sir Keir Starmer and Labour, who seem to be perfectly happy for this to continue. We will not put up with it. And for example, we've returned more than 1,800 Albanian illegal migrants and foreign criminals since December this year, just as one example. And signed a deal with Albania to make sure we're not allowing people to come here from a country which is entirely free.
Yeah. And sorry to rush you, but we're always limited on time, and I just wanted to squeeze in one more question about what's making front-page news this morning, and this is the mess-up by, frankly, Coutts Bank in, first of all, claiming that Nigel Farage had his account closed because he didn't meet the threshold of affluence, 3 million, I think, and actually because his political beliefs didn't align with the bank's values. And I want to know whether or not you think the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, need to be looking into this, and of course the taxpayer have a stake in this. 39% ownership of NatWest Bank. A lot of people would be very alarmed by this, irrespective of politics.
I agree. It's absolutely unacceptable. I don't have to agree with everything that Nigel Farage says, or anything for that matter. It wouldn't make any difference. The idea that you should be unbanked because of your views, of your political views in a democratic system is outrageous and wrong. And I'm afraid it's not just Nigel Farage. For years now, under this thing called the politically exposed persons legislation, banks, and I'm afraid I think probably the FCA, have been allowing this to go on for far too long.
So what are you going to do about
it's
it?
entirely wrong. A lot of people who go into public service do so, and they should not have to expect for their bank accounts to be closed, or indeed, as often happens, for banks to refuse to open bank accounts, and it's not just Coutts, it's other banks as well, and actually for their families as well. To be put under absolute extraordinary measures by these banks, who sometimes want to know, your inside leg measurement before they'll open a bank account for the family of somebody who happens to be in public service. It's all unacceptable.
Yes, unacceptable and outrageous, but people won't be reassured to hear you agree with them on that. The question is, will you put pressure on the FCA to look into this? Will you possibly look at legislation around it? What reassurance can you give to people that this won't happen to them?
My colleague, the Treasury Minister, Andrew Griffiths, is actually on this at the moment and proposing changes, and will be making a statement to Parliament about it, I know. It cannot be right that when people choose to go into public service, and regardless of their views, and I say I don't have to agree with Nigel Farage's views or Labour politicians' views or whoever, that is not the point. The point is people should be able to get banked, and there is no excuse for the banks not allowing those bank accounts to remain open. And by the way, often to refuse to open them in the first place. So the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, have a big role in this. Guidance for them was already changed in 2017. It's clear it's not working. And that is what I think this latest fuss will help resolve. And I know that Andrew Griffiths, who, Minister, you may want to get on the programme, will be explaining to Parliament the further measures that will be taken.
Well, it is enraging a lot of people. Before we say goodbye to you, I can't take my eyes off your Union Jack behind you there, Grant Shapps. I'm just curious, we were talking about a lot of naval matters. Is that a naval ensign?
I was about to point out exactly that to you when you said the Union Jack. It is, in fact, the Red Ensign, which is the naval flag, which I'm particularly fond of, but I have others here as well. I have a Ukrainian flag. And there's a civil aviation flag, much lesser known than the Navy.
I'm very pleased with myself. I spotted that. That's very good. That's very good.
I'm impressed. I'm extremely
impressed. And Mr. Grant Shapps, indeed, always very good with your flags. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Let's get some reaction to all of that from Liam Halligan, who's standing by in the studio, particularly, I think, on the Coutts stuff, or if you want to go into inflation. You choose what your headline reaction will be.
Gosh, it's a red letter day for economics editors, isn't it? Look, a senior cabinet minister who is a very financially literate person, Grant Shapps, has a considerable background in business. He's just said that what Coutts have done is completely outrageous, unacceptable and wrong. That's a pretty big statement. I can reveal that it's my understanding that Andrew Griffiths, the Economic Secretary to the Treasury, another minister with a serious business background, has written to Coutts. He wants to know what's going on. I think it's also nailed on that senior management of Coutts will be called before various select committees at the House of Commons. This is really resonating. As I said earlier, Isabel, I was at a Treasury drinks last night. I was talking about this story because, frankly, I knew more about it than anyone else because I've been talking to Nigel about it for a couple of days. And even the journalists who I know are least disposed to give Nigel Farage the time of day were shocked that a bank like Coutts was saying he does not align with our values and purpose. The purpose of a bank is to adhere to the law, provide a service, and to make profits for its shareholders, which, as you point out, include the government, because we own 2/5 of NatWest, which is the parent company.
But, you know, imagine if you started going through your whole customer database as to who did what or what football team they supported.
It's like someone emailed in about Prince Andrew, didn't they?
Yeah, they were saying, well, that's assuming Prince Andrew is a customer.
Yeah.
They're saying he is. They're saying, do their values align with Prince Andrew's?
It's even more than that. Banks now are using third-party companies to scour the social media of customers to see if there are things there that don't align with their purpose and values.
I'm worried talking to you about it this morning in case somebody thinks I don't align and I'll be cancelled. Then
we've always been bad guys, Eamonn. You know that. No, but look, Nigel has a point, as even his political adversaries. You just heard Grant Shapps. You know, Nigel spent his whole professional life winding up the Conservative Party, and there you have a senior Conservative minister saying
outraged on his behalf.
Outraged on his behalf. I think there are going to be very serious implications of this. It does strike me on first impression that Coutts have at least called into question their adherence with data protection laws by talking to journalists at the BBC and the Financial Times and clearly saying things that aren't borne out by the documented evidence. And we shouldn't be saying Nigel Farage claims he has documents. He has the documents. They're on the front page of the Telegraph.
Yes. And also the irony that they were worried about reputational damage of being, you know, having him as a customer. All of this has got to be terrible.
I mean, whoever is their PR advisor knows less about PR than my dog.
Thanks, Liam.
Thank you, Liam.
Well, we've been talking about inflation figures this morning. How does it affect you? Let's go to Jack Carson, our reporter in Birmingham, for us this morning. And you've been talking to a few people, Jack. Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning to you both. I'm here in Birmingham, where all day we're going to be finding out the reaction to this inflation figure of 7.9%. We're here at the Elevate Property Group in Birmingham. We're joined by James Costello, who's the managing director here. James, initially then this morning on hearing that news, what's your reaction?
Well, of course, it's great news and welcome news across the property industry in general, and it seems like there's light now at the end of the tunnel.
I mean, as a property developer, you've very much got both sides of a double-edged sword, really, with construction costs and also, of course, then going on to selling or rent those properties. Looking at construction first, what have we seen over the last couple of years? What have you seen with prices?
Well, we've seen unprecedented inflation since the middle of last year. That doesn't seem to be coming down anytime soon, so that's been a real challenge for us to manage those ever-increasing costs. And you're right, we're hit with two sides of the coin where interest rates in terms of development finance and the cost of borrowing money, and then the knock-on effect of the increase in the mortgage rate with buyers and potential sellers.
Yeah, I mean, for guys like you know, interest rates are huge. You know, with this inflation figure, we're going to get that decision from the Bank of England soon. What are you looking for there? What is good news for you as a property developer?
Well, stability is the watchword for us. Ideally, those interest rates would stabilise. Ideally, they would come down. Obviously, I think we're due some updates on those interest numbers in the next coming months. So it's a bit of a wait and see, really. But back to the inflation, great news. Good for one of our biggest costs is construction costs. So hopefully, we can now start to see contractors being able to stabilise their material costs and return to an element of fixed price contracting, which again gives us the certainty in terms of development viability.
James, thank you so much for joining us this morning and giving us here finished in Birmingham all day today. We're going to have a people's panel in the city centre to get that reaction.
Looking forward to it, Jack. Thanks very much indeed.
Now, the weather forecast on this Wednesday. Let's go to Aidan McGivern.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, good morning to you. It's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A brighter day for many of us today, sunny spells, but there'll be further showers, especially towards the east. It's towards the east where yesterday's rain is moving away, but still some showers first thing. And then into the afternoon more widely, a mixture of sunny spells and showers emerging. The most frequent and heaviest showers will be towards the east. The driest and brightest weather will be for Wales and the southwest, where some places won't see any showers at all, and it will stay largely dry with sunny spells. 22 Celsius there for Exeter, 16 for Sunderland. So you can see this east-west, north-south contrast in the temperatures. And the showers in the east will continue for some time into the evening, but eventually clear spells will emerge across the UK. Showers really just confined to the north of Scotland, northern parts of Northern Ireland overnight, and with clear skies elsewhere and with lighter winds. We've got cool air in place at the moment, so low double figures, mid to high single figures in some sheltered spots as we wake up on Thursday. Plenty of sunshine though first thing Thursday, but quite quickly that cloud will build once again and we'll see showers developing initially across Wales, central parts of England, but more widely into the afternoon. However, it's towards the south and perhaps across central parts of Scotland where we'll see fewer showers, and with temperatures in the brighter spots reaching low 20s, it won't feel too unpleasant. Wetter weather this weekend.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, it's a make or break moment for England as the fourth Ashes test begins today. Paul Coit will be here with all your latest sport.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But Bond.
And action.
Sergeant, the big green, my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views, and often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Still to come on today's programme. At 9:15, we're going live to Spain, where those red alerts are in place as extreme heat and wildfires are ravaging parts of Europe.
9:15, the great-great-granddaughter of one of the detectives who investigated Jack the Ripper has discovered the killer's true identity. So we thought we knew who Jack the Ripper was. Scary eyes.
He looks like Tom...
He looks like a ripper.
Who am I? Hardy from Peaky Blinders. Oh my gosh.
Tiny beady eyes.
Have you watched Peaky Blinders? He looks like just the spitting image
Is that
of Tom
him?
Hardy.
Is that the Ripper?
So Jack the Ripper,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when he's not killing women, he's in Peaky Blinders. Yeah.
He looks shifty though, doesn't he?
He does. So we're going to ask an expert if this is the conclusion of the world's most notorious unsolved murder cases. See, I thought we knew who Jack the Ripper was.
I know. It's one of those ones where they've put forward people and now this has been disproved.
Yes, you're right, because he was supposed to be a member of royalty. He was a dentist. And some
painter, wasn't he, for a while?
Yeah, there could have been.
Who knows what he was?
But you see, I went to visit my friend the other day, and he said to me, "This pub in the corner is where Jack the Ripper used to pick up his victims from."
Oh, lovely.
Huh?
It's lovely.
Anyway, you can join in any of our discussions if you know who Jack the Ripper was, if you can identify him in a lineup. gbviews@gbnews.com. OK, back pages, they shape up like this. The Mirror, first of all, party like it's 2005. Maybe not as well as Freddie Flintoff did back then. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah. So this is Captain Ben Stokes. He's quite upbeat about all of this ahead of the 4th Ashes Test. And we should mention that the women's cricket team drew the Ashes yesterday, didn't they?
Yeah, they drew
the series
against Australia, the series, and they beat Australia for the first time in a one-day international series for 10 years. But because they drew the series, basically means that Australia retain the Ashes.
Bring the Ashes home. Right, OK. Maurizio Pochettino, he's saying, I need more stars. That was on the back of the Sun there. Yeah. And so he's been a bit quiet so far, but he wants Chelsea dipping into the transfer market. And the England women's pay dispute will be settled after the World Cup, says the Eye. England is one of a number of nations who have failed to resolve the dispute ahead of the tournament. OK, Paul Coit here. So the men's Ashes, the Old Trafford tests begin today.
Does today. So, as I mentioned earlier, 2-1 down. We've got 2 to play. It would be an incredible series if we managed to go from 2-0 down and then end up winning the series and then winning the Ashes back. Baseball, which has been very exciting. Every game has been so tight. I mean, nobody's run away with it.
No, but like the England women's team, it'll be the same for the men. A draw in the series is no good for them.
Correct. A draw is no good. Has to be concluded. I mean, the only real worry I think there is the rain that's around. It looks like it could be OK today, but there's rain expected at Old Trafford then over the weekend. As long as it doesn't rain for almost the entire 5 days, I don't think England will need the entire 5 days for the way that they play cricket.
Yeah.
So let's hope maybe a little bit of rain. It may suit England better with the conditions and also the time, because it really is. It's just going in. It's swashbuckling cricket. So they get it done as quickly as they possibly can. But I am confident, because if they win this, then go to the Oval. Can you imagine what it'd be like at the Oval in a week's time?
Yeah. The transfer market in the football world is bubbling away. A lot of business done at Man United yesterday. They've got that goalkeeper from Inter Milan, Onana. Nearly 50 million quid for him. By the sound of it, he sounds worth it. He can play out from the back.
That's the point of it. That's what he's good at. So the deal is as good as done. There's now talk more.
He just has to go through a medical.
Yeah, it's literally. I think it's just dotting the I's, crossing the T's, all that sort of stuff as far as that's concerned. Marcus Rashford, he's got a new 5-year contract, which is, just shows how well he's played in this last year, because it was on the verge of, is he going to stay, is he going to go? New 5-year contract worth 325 grand a week. I think football's the only place or the only job that you would talk about how much you earn a week, isn't it?
Yeah, you're probably right.
So I've worked out to everybody else, it's about 17 million a year, which is not bad.
You're right.
Johnny Evans back as well.
This is amazing. Johnny Evans used to be a centre-back at Man U. He went off to Leicester City, had a great career there as well, and he's back on a short-term contract.
Yep, so there's a tour. So whether he's going to stick around for a little bit longer, he's worth having in the place. Maybe if any injuries, it's worth doing it. I don't think they're going to pay 325 grand a week for him. Alan St Maximin, there's more Saudi Arabian business which is going on as well.
Now that is really upsetting the apple cart, I would say, in the Premier League. So many players now
because
being
before,
tempted.
When you think they're just older players, now it's the younger players. Alan St Maximin looks like he's going to leave Newcastle. Al Ali is where he's possibly going to go. Luis Diaz, Al Hilal have made an offer because there's unlimited cash. So they can go and say, well, what do you fancy it? So it's a player thinking, well, what do I do? Do I go for the money or not? But there you go.
Now, why does Bayern Munich need Harry Kane? On the basis that scoring goals is not a problem. Give folks the update of this friendly match that they played.
Let me tell you about this beautiful town, which is about 35 miles south of Munich in northern Bavaria. I think we've got some shots of the towns. It's a lovely place called... There it is. There we are. It's a lovely looking place, isn't it?
Gorgeous.
Rotak-Egan. Beautiful, picturesque town. It's known for its winter sports, skiing, tobogganing. Am I sounding like Cliff Mitchell at the moment? How's that?
I'm in.
And there it is. It's there, and they've got the winter sports is one thing. Look at that. Go on the beautiful lake. It's a stunning place to be. But whether football is their game, I'm not really too sure, because Bayern Munich play them every year, and they played them in a friendly yesterday, and the score was Rotak-Egan 0, Bayern München 27.
Oh, 27. My God.
27
Tuchel's in charge there, isn't he, at Bayern?
They got 2 goals.
You would say, well, take a foot off the pedal at 10 or something.
Well, if they had Harry Kane, I think they'd scored 40. I think they probably would have scored 40.
Maybe they had the foot off the pedal.
I think they probably did. But lovely place to go, but maybe not for football, I think. Anyway. Would you like to do a birthday? Do you want to do a birthday today?
Whose birthday is it today?
We did Nick Faldo yesterday. You were a year out.
90.
Isabel thought
his lawyers have been in touch.
Oh, gosh,
I even had a call from the PGA yesterday. I had to try and apologise.
That was a compliment. I was just saying he looked really young for his age, but apparently backfired.
90. Shall we go again?
Yeah.
I've got a tennis player, legendary tennis player, Wimbledon finalist, 1972 and 1976. Let's have a look at him. Tell me, how old is this? There he is.
Oh, Lionesses.
Lionesses, the nasty, the first of the complainers.
How old is he today?
How old do you reckon?
So wait a minute. He had to be about 30 there.
Oh, probably younger.
So that
always use the rule, though. If you go back about 40, everybody always looks older than they actually are.
OK,
always
give us some clues.
So that
Stands
50 years ago.
70s is good.
50 years ago.
Stan Smith, he beat in the final.
Yeah.
Known for the shoes. Bjorn Borg.
Stan Smith looked old then.
He did. He looked about 50 or 60 then.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'd say 80, but I'm going to be kind after yesterday. I'll go 77.
77.
That sounds pretty.
It sounds pretty close, doesn't it? It sounds pretty close. What are you going to go?
I would say that's spot on.
You're going to go 77? Yeah. No, he's 33. Yeah. No, he's 77. 77 gosh. Is the right. Very good. You really have redeemed yourself.
When I
Did you do some homework?
You know, I do a bit of fast maths, my specialism, and sport combined.
What about Cliff Mitchell-Moore?
Cliff Mitchell-Moore?
Yeah.
I'm afraid.
He's dead, you don't have to worry.
I'm sorry to break the news to you, but Cliff's no longer with us.
As soon as Paul said Cliff Mitchell-Moore, I'm thinking she has.
You tried to help me out, you stitched me up.
Oh, I love Isabel's all knowledge. He says, I'm sounding like Cliff Mitchell-Moore. And she's going, yes.
I'm going to admit, I only remember Cliff Mitchell-Moore from the holiday programme, not from before then.
No, good.
I remember the latter years of Cliff.
Well, you could mention Frank Boff.
I could. Well, is that all right too?
Well, I don't know. Maybe people don't.
I was just nodding at the beautiful lake, to be frank.
It's a lovely lake.
Very beautiful.
It's a lovely.
Well, Frank was Frank.
No, stop it. Right,
no, but seriously, his only sin was he went into a brothel and.
Oh yeah, let's not start this.
And tied people up to the wall and whatever, and
recovered from
drugs and cocaine. And do you know what forced him into those ways?
What?
Presenting breakfast television.
Gosh. Well, I better get out.
Goodness knows what's going to happen to me.
On that note,
are we having that night out tonight, by the way? That's what I was going to say. Are we doing that or are we not? No, we're not. OK.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. Stay with us. We're going to find out why US presidential candidate Ron DeSantis has backed his, well, sometimes described as rival, Donald Trump, over his impending indictment.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Right, we're going to go through the papers again. David Miller, Scarlett Maguire there. David, Commonwealth Games. We got this news yesterday that Victoria in Australia, they're saying, not value for money, it's costing billions.
Yeah, $3.5 million. Now, I'm just looking at it online, because an increasing number of these stories, of course, appear online. So I'm looking at the Mail online. At some point, it'll no doubt reach the printed edition. And Sadiq Khan, that most majestic of creatures, is riding to the rescue, it appears, because any decision would need to be taken by the government. However, London, says Sadiq Khan, is the sporting capital of the world, and the mayor stands ready to support a submission for 20.
So how's he going to pay for all that?
Well, that's the point. He's run out of money anyway.
Get it from you, Les, will he?
We come to the real question. Does the Commonwealth Games matter? I throw it out there for consideration.
Well, in this commercial world, you could argue, no, it doesn't.
I loved it growing up, and I think it's a loss, and we talked about this yesterday. We think it's a symptom of the sort of proliferation of TV channels, that it's not promoted enough, and personally, I love watching the Commonwealth Games. I don't follow athletics very closely, but when it is on and I get a chance to watch it, I enjoy it. But, you know, what's the future for it?
But it's, you know, another day, another competition, isn't it?
But yes, because actually, I'm afraid when it was on in Birmingham, I don't think I watched any of it at all. I mean, like you, I'm not into athletics, so it didn't really matter.
But
so would it matter if the Commonwealth Games came to an end? We never had another one.
Yes, of course it would, because it's about quality.
But the thing is, what I don't understand is why they always need to build an infrastructure from scratch. Why there has to be new stadiums, all this stupid dancing at the start and the end and all this nonsense. Why can't they go... I mean, we've got stadia all around the country that surely could host these things.
And I guess that's the idea of them coming to London. The infrastructure is there, but that doesn't mean it won't cost a packet. Is that packet worth paying? That's the thing.
Well, I mean, if the infrastructure's there, that's the big price. I mean, presumably there'll be sponsors, and then we'll have an amazing influx of tourists. I mean, presumably, I have very different views than you on Sadiq Khan. I think he's great. But, I mean, presumably he's talked to his...
Continued page 94.
He's talked to his people, and actually there's probably money in it. I mean, the music industry yesterday said how many people they knew who came. I have a Kosovan family who they come over and stay in my house. They went to Harry Styles and ABBA this time. They went to some punk person I'd never heard of last time. The kids say, we really want to see this. The mum brings them over.
Why is Australia, why is Victoria saying this is just like economic suicide?
Too expensive.
They can't get the sponsorship. They have to do the infrastructure. And obviously there's a bit of politics. I mean, they're ready to become a republic.
See, for instance, I would love... You see, we don't compete, David, correct me if I'm wrong here, we don't compete as Great Britain in the Commonwealth Games.
No,
we are Scotland and England and Wales and whatever, Northern Ireland. See, I would love it to be in Northern Ireland. It was just such an amazing thing for us, and we've got a few stadium and things that we could use for that. But I'm not sure... maybe.
Can we talk about the story?
The golf did well in Northern Ireland, didn't it?
Sorry?
Wasn't it the Ryder Cup in Northern Ireland, or am I making that up?
No. They played the Open a few years ago.
That's right. Yeah. And that was really impressive.
Oh, very impressive at Portrush, yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted
Not
you.
at all. No, that's absolutely fine.
I'll accept a good slapping
Not
for that.
at all. It was an interesting point. Much appreciated. Scarlett, can we talk about the work from home story on the front of the Times, saying that actually Europe, who we love to quote as sort of being litigious about the amount of hours they'll spend in the office, they're more than us these days.
Yes. I mean, what I don't understand about this country and the media in this country is how anti-working from home they are. I mean, it's just something that's happening. It's something that's happening whether one likes it or not, that for people who can work from home, they tend to work about 3 days. 3 days in the office, 2 days off. I think it's really, really important, particularly for young people, that they can go into work so that they get out of not very nice housing, living with their parents, but more importantly, they make friends. I mean, a lot of my friends I met doing work. I mean, that's the whole badinage of being in the office, I think is fantastic.
A lot of people meet partners as well.
Yeah, me too. I mean, absolutely.
And this show proves it, doesn't it? Because we could be doing this down the line. But I actually, I don't, please reach for your hankies. I genuinely love coming in and being here,
and we
mixing
are
with far more distinguished people than I ever meet.
Mixing with young people.
Young people like you.
Sorry.
This is the point. No, but you know what I mean? There's a camaraderie that you cannot have down the line. You can't.
David.
No, but actually, he's completely right. And it's not just you two. It's actually all the people. It's all the people, all the producers and everybody like that we have a joke with. And so I do think that in person is great, but I actually think there's nothing wrong with working from home. And I remember, I mean, years ago, if you wanted to get something done, you spent the day at home where you could actually
make up time.
And frankly, I'm much more efficient than a lot of people I work for because I just sit at home and write.
Yeah, and also no commute time. Get an extra hour in the morning, extra hour in the evening. And people can afford bigger homes because they don't have to live so close to the city.
Yeah. I mean, all that. We're in a financial crisis, and people actually save a lot of money by working
Scarlett was
from home.
saying, why is there this antithesis about it? Why is there this argument about it? And I'll tell you what it is. It's ingrained into all of us that if you don't turn up, put on your uniform, clock in at a certain time, clock out at a certain time, then you're not doing work. I mean, I think it's that sort of regimentation.
Do you think it's a bit of jealousy because actually no one can do this job from home, so we're always going to be stuck having to come into work, so we get a bit miffed with all these people that get to do it at home?
But there's this sort of myth that you don't really do anything, and you.
If you were at school, wind back to your school years, right? And you said, please, sir, please, miss, I could do so much more if I just stayed at home today instead of coming into class. They'd have thrown you out. Nobody would have believed you, nor you wouldn't have believed yourself.
And I wouldn't, and what happened to all the children who had to stay at home? It was a complete disaster. So, I mean, and obviously it's about managing. It's about managing people who work from home. It's about, I mean, I think it's quite tough, actually, to have people working from home and saying, you have to achieve this, you have to achieve that. But I remember during COVID, I had this wonderful lodger who's a friend of my daughter's, and I felt so guilty about how hard she worked. I mean, I cooked for her every night because she was 9 till 6 every day, with a break for lunch when we do the crossword.
OK.
Do we have time for one more? Sorry, my producer just spoke to me and I didn't hear what you were saying. Can we... OK, let's reflect the situation in the States because we got this news from former President Donald Trump that he was expecting a further federal indictment at some point in relation to the 6th of January uprising. And DeSantis has come out in support of him, which is quite interesting given they are sort of rivals
I think
as well
it's
as the same
quite frightening,
party.
actually. First of all, this relates to the incident on the 6th of January of last year when there was this attack. There was an attack on the Capitol where a number of people wound up by Trump that he had the election stolen from him, turned up and violently surged through the Capitol, putting various legislators in fear of, legitimate fear, I would say, of being attacked. Now, Trump says that the special prosecutor who's looking into this is going to charge him. Now, DeSantis is suggesting effectively that this is just a Democratic Party conspiracy. Why is he doing this? I mean, Trump is an abomination, and would be really quite nice if the Republican Party found someone who could actually stand up there and say, Trump is an abomination. Let us drive him from it. Because, you know, just thinking back down memory lane, I got on very well with Ronald Reagan. I went to both his inaugurations, went extensively to both of his elections. Ronald Reagan was a gentleman.
Yeah.
A gentleman and a gentle man. I mean, Trump is an abomination, and I'm sure one person who'd think he was an abomination is Ron Reagan, because everything Ron Reagan stood for, courtesy, respect, decency, being Uncle Sam, which Trump isn't Uncle Sam. Trump is something awful.
Well, Trump says it's a witch hunt, just to get that point across.
Yes.
Trump says everything's a witch hunt if it's against him.
Thanks, Scarlett, and thank you, David, very much. David, it's been lovely looking after you for the past 3 hours.
I'm going to go and have a cry now.
Oh, stop!
I am.
Feeling all hormonal today.
I have to deal with him off air. It's all right for you two.
I'm sure there's a pill for it somewhere. I just haven't
He's
yet
not
discovered
going
it.
home. He's going to be locked up for the rest of the day. He won't be going out anywhere.
By his wonderful partner will make
Folks,
sure
thank
he's
you.
not out.
We've got to talk weather now. All these red alerts, Greece, Spain, Italy, the wildfires, the extreme temperatures continue to wreak havoc.
Yes, and we can speak to the Spanish meteorologist Martin Barrero, who joins us from Madrid for the very latest. Good morning to you. It's 8:50 here, so I presume it's coming up to, what, 10 o'clock where you are. What are the temperatures like, and what's life like in Madrid at the moment?
Hi, good morning. But it's terrible because we have maximum temperatures around 40 these days here in the center of Spain, and in the south even more. We have around 45 Celsius, and the worst part of this heat wave is the nights. In Valencia, for example, we have 7 days in a row with 25 degrees, the minimum temperatures in the night. And with these temperatures, you cannot sleep very well, and you need the air conditioning, the ceilings fans, etc. It's really hard to live like that in Madrid or in the south of Spain, as you imagine.
The highest temperature recorded yesterday in Spain was 45 degrees Celsius. We were talking, weren't we, this week about Seville and the kind of temperatures that they've been experiencing. And frankly, the impact not just only on life, but on things like the buildings.
The architecture,
and the architecture.
Cars. So it makes, Martin, I suppose, maintenance of your home, public buildings, vehicles,
public transport,
a lot more difficult. Train tracks.
Yes, of course. Yesterday we have, as you say, 45 in Girona. Is near the sea. Even though you have these terrible temperatures, the buildings like the public libraries or something like that, it becoming a climate refugee, like a shelter from these temperatures, and you cannot make a normal life in this situation. You have to stay the more time you can inside the building, in a fresh building or your home, and you get out the last hours of the day to take something. Typically in Spanish we say salir a tomar la fresca. It's something like you going out to take the fresh air that we have, the little fresh air we have at in the late afternoon, in the night. In the morning, you have to open the windows and close quickly because the heat enter in the building very quickly. In Spain, we have something that I think that you in England don't used to have. The blinds, we have strong blinds that don't allow to enter any ray of sun, even though we have we have to close them all the day.
Martin, we've got to leave it there. But thank you for bringing us the picture and indeed helping us understand the temperatures and what you guys have got to live through. Good luck. Stay cool, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Adios.
Yeah, that's the thing. I always think about what have you had to do. You know, your job involved you being outside and you know, whether it's washing cars, digging roads, painting, you know,
Commuting,
buildings.
getting from A to B across the city on public transport, whatever it might be. Really grim.
Bad. Well, don't worry. You've got none of that to worry about in the UK, as Aidan McGivern will now tell you.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, good morning to you. It's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A brighter day for many of us today, sunny spells, but there'll be further showers, especially towards the east. It's towards the east where yesterday's rain is moving away, but still some showers first thing, and then into the afternoon more widely, a mixture of sunny spells and showers emerging. The most frequent and heaviest showers will be towards the east. The driest and brightest weather will be for Wales and the southwest, where some places won't see any showers at all, and it will stay largely dry with sunny spells. 22 Celsius there for Exeter, 16 for Sunderland, so you can see this east-west, north-south contrast in the temperatures. And the showers in the east will continue for some time into the evening, but eventually clear spells will emerge across the UK. Showers really just confined to the north of Scotland, northern parts of Northern Ireland overnight, and with clear skies elsewhere and with lighter winds. We've got cool air in place at the moment, so low double figures, mid to high single figures in some sheltered spots as we wake up on Thursday. Plenty of sunshine though first thing Thursday, but quite quickly that cloud will build once again and we'll see showers developing initially across Wales, central parts of England, but more widely into the afternoon. However, it's towards the south and perhaps across central parts of Scotland where we'll see fewer showers, and with temperatures in the brighter spots reaching low 20s, it won't feel too unpleasant. Wetter weather this weekend.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Stay with us.
Just reading that Rome was amongst several European cities to break temperature records yesterday. 41.8 degrees C in Rome. That's 1 degree centigrade higher than the previous record in Rome, which was this time last year.
Well, look, it's been a really busy news morning. We'll have more analysis for you on that developing picture as inflation has eased to 7.9%. Do stay with us.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle. I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But
and action.
Sergeant, the big green,
my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views, and often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in their home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Inflation eases to 7.9%, its lowest level in over a year.
Hello there, 9 o'clock exactly, Wednesday, 19th of July. Eamonn and Isabel here, breakfast on GB News.
Thank you for your company. Here's what's leading the news this morning. Inflation fell from 8.7% in May to 7.9% in June, in a sign that price rises may finally be slowing down. The Chancellor said that despite the good news, the government isn't complacent.
We need to stick to the plan to halve inflation, to bring it back even beyond that to the Bank of England's target rate of 2%. But we can see from other countries, if we do that, we will succeed and we can put this very difficult period for households behind us.
Jaguar Land Rover has confirmed it will invest £4 billion in building an electric car battery factory, creating up to 9,000 jobs. The Prime Minister hailed the investment as a testament to the strength of the UK's car industry.
Nigel Farage has obtained documents that Coutts closed his account on personal and political grounds. The bank originally claimed he was dropped because he didn't meet the wealth threshold.
2 cruise ships set to house 1,000 asylum seekers have been refused entry and returned to their owners after being unable to find anywhere to dock. Approaches by the giant vessels were rejected in Liverpool, in London and in Edinburgh ports.
And we'll have your forecast a little bit later on in the programme. Here's a taster.
No sign of the European heatwave affecting the UK anytime soon, but will we at least see any brighter weather in between the showers? I'll have the full forecast in the next hour or so.
Our top story, inflation's fallen to 7.9%. That's down from 8.7 in May. The figures released in the past hour.
Well, this means that inflation has slowed to its lowest annual rate since March 2022. That is the phone of our in-house economics guru, Liam Halligan. Because let's be honest, this is a big news day for you on many fronts.
My phone's red hot.
It's running off the hook.
If you got my number, it's a hot number these days.
And speaking of hot numbers, how hot is inflation looking?
Look, this is a much better number than the City of London expected. There was a consensus of economists yesterday saying that inflation would fall from 8.7% in May to 8.2% during the year to June. The fact that we're below 8% now is psychologically important, but, you know, let's not get the bunting out too early, because inflation in the US is 3%, in the Eurozone it's 5.5%. I think the key thing here for GB News viewers and listeners is this now makes it a bit less likely that the Bank of England raises interest rates again on the 3rd of August. But on the balance of probability, it does look as if there still will be more rate rises, because inflation, after all, is still almost 4 times the Bank of England's 2% target.
Yeah, and the Prime Minister's target of 5%, still some way off. What is driving it? Because if you strip out the volatile food and energy markets or indexes, you get core inflation, and that's looking OK, 6.9%.
Well, it's still pretty high. Core inflation in May was 7.1%. That was a 30-year high. As you say, Isabel, rightly, core inflation strips out really volatile components that are often imported, like food and energy. It's kind of the inbuilt price pressures in the UK supply chain, wage bargaining and so on. So it's 7.1% in May. Core inflation is still 6.9%, so that hasn't come down very much at all. Also, food price inflation, 18.3% during the year to May, and many shoppers will say actually their food bills have gone up a lot more than that. It's still 17.3% in June. No wonder that the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority, says it's now investigating whether supermarkets are passing on falling input prices. They're saying, they announced that investigation back in May, but they're saying it's not going to report until at the end of this month at the earliest. They need to get a move on.
Need to get a move on, yeah. And would we be able to compare that food inflation to anywhere else in the world or anywhere else in Europe? Can we compare to see how good or bad we're doing?
As the supermarkets say, food price inflation is at or around these levels in many other major European economies. It is coming down a little bit faster than it is in the UK and France and Germany, but it's still within the mid-teen double digits. Yeah. So this is what really impacts people. Food and housing, and it's clear that for a lot of people this cost of living squeeze isn't over by a long way. Even though we're saying this is a decent fall in inflation, it's just a bit less intense.
And we started introducing you by saying it's a really busy day for you because there is so much sort of financial news around. The Chancellor earlier saying that, you know, the best way to deal with inflation is to try and grow the economy, and there was big news of a possible or now confirmed gigafactory being built by Tata Jaguar Land Rover in Somerset. So, you know, is this cause for celebration?
It's certainly better than the alternative. The alternative was that this multi-billion-pound gigafactory constructing the batteries, of course, that go into electric vehicles, seen as vital to the future of the UK car industry. The alternative was that it went to Spain. But it seems that the British government is paying Tata, the Indian conglomerate, the parent company of Jaguar Land Rover, up to £500 million in various subsidies. Interesting, of course, Isabel, that this is being announced just the day before the Somerset and Frome by-election down there in the West Country, because this new gigafactory is to be built in Bridgewater, close to Hinkley Point, by the way, which is just down the road from Somerset and Frome. So this is good news. 5,000 highly paid jobs, others in the supply chain. An underlying issue, is electric vehicle technology really the way to go? I'm not sure.
Yeah, when you look to the States and lots of talk about hydrogen and all sorts of other technology.
The government's suggesting EV, electric vehicles, are the way to go. The government's telling us we have to get rid of all new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. History shows, though, that mandarins and officials, they don't always know where technology is going. I think we're going to see a bit of a reversal on EVs, and a lot of the private sector agrees with me, which is why it's hard to raise private sector finance for these gigafactories.
Liam, we're now going to see the shadowing Levelling Up Minister. That's Alec Norris. We say good morning to him. He's in Westminster for us this morning. And Alex, your comments on the inflation figures and the nearly 1% reduction in them today.
Morning, Eamonn. Thanks for having me. I mean, I'd be a little bit cautious in how we present this. You know, people up and down the country, your viewers, will find that the statistics today have validated what they knew, that the prices are going up at a significant rate. You know, it's good that the rate of inflation has decreased, but it hasn't decreased by very much. We're still at a significantly high level. We're at an outlier level with many similar countries. So, you know, I'd be cautious about saying this is good news, because it's continued pain for lots of people up and down the country.
Labour's approach then to try and bring down inflation more quickly? I mean, we looked at the States, they're around 3%, much of the Eurozone now at 5.5%, and you're saying, you know, we could be doing better?
Well, I mean, we're clearly an outlier when you put it in those terms, aren't we? Part of the problem is there isn't a click your fingers solution. It's sticking plaster politics that's got us into this mess. You know, you need a long-term commitment to an economy that's growing, that's got skilled work across all communities, which is why the JLR announcement is so welcome. We need that across the country. That's what true levelling up is. There are things we can do in the meantime, like the support that we've been pushing for on mortgages, like the support on energy bills, but this will be a long run and is a reflection of 13 years of mismanagement of our economy, and that's the challenges that any future government will deal with.
What about the Bank of England? Any criticisms there? Any indication of mismanagement from them? The point I'm really getting at, Alex, is that there's been a lot of pain through interest rises. It takes a good few months for the effect of an interest rise to come through and demonstrate how it's affecting the economy. But it's odds on Bank of England are going to raise it again next month.
Yeah, I mean, we know that every month another significant group of people will go into ending their fixed rate, so they will remortgage, and their bills will go up. There are things that we can do immediately to get them relief on that, and that's what we've been pushing the government on. But the Bank of England is an independent institution. They've got a target of 2% when it comes to inflation. We're clearly a long way off that, so that will be a decision for them to make in terms of what they need to do in order to get to that target.
The investment being made by Jaguar Land Rover and Tata into this gigafactory that's been announced or confirmed at least this morning. We haven't been able to pin the government down on how much their subsidy of it has been. Rumours in the papers this morning of around £500 million. Of course, really important to know how much is being spent on it to assess whether or not we're getting good value for money as the taxpayer. Is there a threshold at which you would question how much value this deal actually provides? Because, we were just discussing with Liam Halligan that, are electric vehicles really the future? And you look to other countries, they're already talking about hydrogen. Perhaps we're a bit behind the curve on all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think Liam was slightly more negative on electric vehicles than I would be. Even if you accept Liam's case, which I'm not sure I do, that 2030 will fall back, EVs are going to be a huge part of the solution, even if they're not the total solution. So clearly we're going to need more. We want them built in Britain. Offering subsidies to get that going, well, that is a routine thing to do. Of course, we want to see the finances to make sure the taxpayer's getting a good deal from it. But these are good investments, because 9,000 skilled jobs and all the jobs in their supply chain, lifts the country up and puts more into the coffers and gives people better lives. Our plans through our Green Prosperity Plan would lead to 80,000 such jobs, and that does involve state investment in that, but boy, do you get a good return, and that's what our economy is going to look like in the future.
Yeah, just want to finish by talking to you about Nigel Farage. Obviously, we don't expect you to agree with him politically, but the headlines today are saying that Coutts, the bank, lied over why they actually banned him. They said he originally wasn't rich enough, but now it emerges they believed, and I quote, his views don't align with our values. What do you think about cancelling customers in this way? I
mean, I don't have a view on the individual case. I think there'll be, I've seen the information overnight, but I'd be lying if I said I'd was deep into the detail of that. In general, if individuals are not happy with how they're treated by their bank or the system more generally, that's something I've helped my constituents with before. Well, there are regulators there that underpin our freedoms, so I would encourage individuals to avail themselves of that, and that'll help us make sure that banks are acting as they ought to.
Fascinating. I mean, we've heard from the government this morning who used the words outrageous and unacceptable, but you're saying, you don't really know the ins and outs of this story, which is on the front of 2 of the national newspapers this morning. And this is a man who has, whether you like his politics or not, attracted a huge number of votes in this country, a big political figure, and it has now been proven that a bank has said that offends their company values.
Could be you next, Alex. It could be cancelling you next.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I certainly wouldn't cross any thresholds at Coots, Eamonn, if I'm honest. But, you know,
well, no,
I know
mean,
why
you can make
ministers
flippant
do that.
comments like that, but they're owned by NatWest, which is 39% taxpayer-owned. This is relevant to all of us.
Of course it isn't. I myself have been battling my bank with this week related to, you know, the politically exposed persons regulations. Those are important regulations that they do those right. You know, ministers trying to ratchet up the debate and trying to inflame the debate are doing that because they want to distract from the fact that we've got really high inflation and dreadful news on the NHS today. So, you know, I think ministers should focus on their jobs and then we should let the regulator do their jobs and we'll get to the bottom of what's happened.
Alex Norris, thank you. Alex is the Shadow Levelling Up Minister. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, 2 cruise ships that were due to house 1,000 migrants have been returned to their company after the government failed to find ports at which to berth them.
So this happened in London, it happened in Liverpool, it happened in Edinburgh, and they all said, no, you're not docking here. But we still believe the government thinks that ships are still an option. And talks are ongoing. We want to get to the bottom of this, so we're going to go to Tom Harwood, our deputy political editor, to see if he knows any more as to why and how this could have happened, how we can dock a barge in Dorset, but you can't sail one up into Edinburgh, Liverpool or London.
Well, a barge, I guess, is about size, is it? A barge being a bit... Well, mind you, still can house 500 people. I believe having a few problems connecting to Tom Harwood. He can't hear us this morning. So what we'll do is we'll catch up with Andrew and Bev, who've
Can
got
you two hear us?
Through, and then we'll come back to Tom, if we can.
And I think it's to do with political persuasion. I think these Liverpool, Edinburgh, it's Labour don't want these barges. They're trying to disrupt the government's contentious immigration policy.
The Conservative MP down in Portland's not too happy about it.
No, he's not.
Either.
It's true. Nobody really wants them, but they've got to go somewhere. So I think there's a bit of politics going on here.
It's been a really busy news morning for us. Presumably that's going to carry on for you. What have you got in store for us?
We're going to talk big about Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
And I think you were right to give that shadow minister a hard time because it's an outrage.
He did seem a bit dismissive about it.
It's because it's Nigel Farage. He's been cancelled and the bank lied about it.
And the idea that people don't think it could happen to them. This is the thing. You might be happy with the government at the moment. You might be happy with the bank silencing and censoring Nigel like this and taking away a fundamental right to be able to keep your money in a long-running establishment. But if the government changes and the ideology of the day changes, any of us could fall into that trap. So it doesn't matter where you sit politically. You have to defend the right of Nigel Farage to be able to use a service which is provided to other people. And it isn't a coincidence that it's a right-leaning politician, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It isn't a coincidence. This doesn't happen
that
to people on the left.
document, 86 times it mentions the word Brexit.
Mentions the word?
Brexit.
Yeah. And interesting that they initially could put it out that Nigel Farage wasn't meeting financial targets,
right.
He wasn't, which is sort of slanderous, libelous,
yeah,
whatever.
Absolutely. They lied.
Yeah, it's a big story.
And the thing is, they took on the wrong person.
They did.
Because Nigel wasn't going to go away and let that lie.
Yeah.
Like if he has something in his sights, as we saw with Brexit, and he wants to make it happen, and he wants the truth to out, that is what he does, and that's precisely what he's done.
And that bank is 40% owned by the taxpayer as well. We're also talking, of course, about the big factory. Great news down there in Somerset. Thousands of jobs.
Good quality jobs as well.
Good quality jobs.
And London Conservative Mayor candidate will be announced this morning as well.
Lots to look forward to. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. They're on from 9:30. Jack the Ripper. Who was he? We think we know after this.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Now, we're talking about one of the most notorious serial killers of all time. That is, of course, Jack the Ripper, and he may now have been unmasked.
See, I thought he was unmasked. I already thought we knew. Well, the great-great-granddaughter of one of the detectives who was investigating back in the day thinks she has identified him as...
Hyams, who was a cigar maker.
OK, joining us in the studio, Mick Priestley. Mick has a very interesting job. Mick is a full-time Jack the Ripper tour guide and an author of One Autumn in Whitechapel, which is where these murders take place. So, Mick, really appreciate your insight to all of this. So, from what you hear, is this the definitive name we're going to come up with today, or is this just another one added to the list?
I think just about everybody who was alive in Victorian times in London's East End has been named as Jack the Ripper at some point, and I can't help but think this is just the latest name added to the list.
And do you think perhaps this is catching attention because of the proposer's relationship to a detective involved in it at the time, the great-great-granddaughter of the policeman?
Possibly. It's interesting.
Nice tale.
It's interesting, but yes, I think the evidence has been put forward in the description of the man. He doesn't seem to fit with reports from witnesses and police at the time. He would also seem to have been locked up in a mental asylum before the last two murders took place. So it would appear if he couldn't have committed those murders, it doesn't look like he committed the rest of them.
How many murders are we talking about?
Well, the police at the time said at least 8. Edmund Reed, who was the chief of CID in Whitechapel at the time, when he wrote his memoirs as an older man, he said there were at least 9 murders. He never said who the 9th one was. Now, with the amount of conspiracy theories and books and movies, everybody agrees on 5, but there were a few others that were attributed to him at the time.
Why is it, do you think, that we're still intrigued by the horrors of this man over 100 years later?
I think it's the mystery of it. It's partly the violence and the slums and the horrible area it happened in, but it was the first time you had something like this happen with what we've seen as like a modern tabloid press. So it was the first time you had something where the murder would happen and the paparazzi of the day would be getting the big scoop. It was the first case like that to sell millions of newspapers, and I think because it just never got solved, it's just something that's always stuck around. It wasn't the first time it happened, it wasn't the worst time, but it was the most notorious.
So you make your living, or certainly part of your living, from murder tourism. How big an attraction is murder tourism?
Well, I mean, I can only speak for the Jack the Ripper tour. As far as I'm aware, I think it's the busiest walking tour in London. It's very busy every night of the week. As long as it doesn't rain, it's a good and interesting night. We take around all the spots where the murders happened. This is where the body was. This is where the policeman came. We see a lot of old Victorian buildings and architecture. It's a historical tour, kind of based around the Jack the Ripper case. But it's always very busy. People from all over the world.
And do you feel, as someone that clearly knows everything inside out about this story, do you feel you kind of sometimes get inside the mind of Jack the Ripper?
Sometimes, I suppose, to a degree. I think I've done enough research on it. You feel like you kind of understand a lot of things that you didn't before. You can... yeah, it's something I've become extremely familiar with.
What sort of people go on Jack the Ripper tours? Do you get some weirdos?
People often ask that. Very rarely, very rarely.
Really, just tourists?
When you've done tours for thousands and thousands of people, occasionally there's somebody comes along, but no, it's just regular people. Tourists, people who've seen a movie or they've read a book, or it's something you've heard about, want to learn more about.
Where would you lay your money? If you were to name a name, who do you think the Ripper was?
Well, my personal favourite suspect is a man named Albert Backett, B-A-C-H-E-R-T. His parents were German. He was born and raised in Whitechapel. He's the right age. He fits the right description. He's got a criminal record for all the things you'd expect a serial killer to have today. He was constantly injecting himself in the investigation. He told the police he'd met the killer. He said the police, the killer was writing letters to his house. He turned up uninvited to the inquest of one of the victims, demanding to be on the jury, just when the jury were about to be taken to view a body in the mortuary. Caused such a big scene, wouldn't let him, that the coroner threatened to have him removed from the building. I think he just wanted to see the body in the mortuary. I'm convinced it's him, personally. I'm open-minded, but you got to...
And he never got apprehended or anything?
Jack the Ripper?
No, Albert Backett.
Albert Backett. He was arrested for various crimes, violence offences, drunken-related things. He got arrested and taken to court for passing counterfeit coins. And, he was a strange man.
Well, Mick, thanks for your tour this morning round those names and telling us all about it. Mick Priestley is a Jack the Ripper tour guide. Thank you very much indeed. Now, Isabel and I have family matters to attend to tomorrow, so we won't be here. We hope you will be from 6 a.m. But up next...
we have Bev and Andrew with Britain's Newsroom.
Good morning.
Good morning. And we're talking big story. Nigel Farage cancelled by his bank, Coots, because he had the wrong political views.
That's right. Inflation figures as well this morning with Liam. And also, the Conservative candidate for London Mayor will be announced in our show. Don't go anywhere.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GBNews.
Hi there, good morning to you. It's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A brighter day for many of us today, sunny spells, but there'll be further showers, especially towards the east. It's towards the east where yesterday's rain is moving away, but still some showers first thing, and then into the afternoon more widely, a mixture of sunny spells and showers emerging. The most frequent and heaviest showers will be towards the east. The driest and brightest weather will be for Wales and the southwest, where some places won't see any showers at all, and it will stay largely dry with sunny spells. 22 Celsius there for Exeter, 16 for Sunderland, so you can see this east-west, north-south contrast in the temperatures. And the showers in the east will continue for some time into the evening, but eventually clear spells will emerge across the UK. Showers really just confined to the north of Scotland, northern parts of Northern Ireland overnight, and with clear skies elsewhere and with lighter winds. We've got cool air in place at the moment, so low double figures, mid to high single figures in some sheltered spots as we wake up on Thursday. Plenty of sunshine though first thing Thursday, but quite quickly that cloud will build once again and we'll see showers developing initially across Wales, central parts of England, but more widely into the afternoon. However, it's towards the south and perhaps across central parts of Scotland where we'll see fewer showers, and with temperatures in the brighter spots reaching low 20s, it won't feel too unpleasant. Wetter weather this weekend.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Da-da-da-da-dum, etc.
That's the whole point. But
and action.
Sergeant Reed, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political budgets.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows,